Chapter 311. Before Poplar Fruit could say a few words of comfort, Zheng Yujie suddenly raised her head and took a deep breath. Her smile returned, but she still had to lift her snow-white wrist to gently wipe away the tears at the corner of her eyes. "It's okay, Kiki. Annie won't cry. Annie is also very obedient." Zheng Yujie stepped forward and touched Kiki's head. This was how Zheng Yujie should be. However, Poplar Fruit's heart was still flustered because the more nonchalant Zheng Yujie acted, the deeper the sadness she was hiding in her heart. Poplar Fruit was very worried that Zheng Yujie would be like Duan Xueqing and become more and more distant from him. Yujie. Poplar Fruit hesitated for a moment and decided to reveal his feelings to Zheng Yujie. "You guessed right. It is indeed because of Fong Bei Bei. I can't promise you. But you and her haven't started yet, have you?" Zheng Yujie couldn't help but ask. "I don't know." Poplar Fruit painfully grabbed his hair and said, "But I feel that sometimes my head is full of her. I have been in love before, and I know the feeling of falling in love with someone." "Then what about me?" Zheng Yujie shook her body and asked, "Do you have feelings for me?" Poplar Fruit hesitated for a moment, gently nodded and said, "Maybe, but I don't know." Zheng Yujie clenched her teeth and didn't continue to ask. Poplar Fruit also stood there stupidly, not knowing what to say. The two of them fell into silence. Suddenly, Zheng Yujie smiled and said, "It's okay, I understand." Poplar Fruit anxiously said, "Don't be like this." "Don't be like what?" At this moment, Zheng Yujie was extraordinarily calm. She smiled and said, "Do I have a cold war with you like Duan Xueqing?" Zheng Yujie smiled sweetly and said, "Don't worry, I'm different from Duan Xueqing. I won't force you to make a decision early." However, she muttered in her heart, "I'm not as stupid as that woman. It's not like I don't know what kind of personality you have. You usually look silly and don't have your own opinions, but you are more assertive than anyone else. If I push you too hard, won't I still push you to someone else's side?" Hearing her say this, Poplar Fruit's heart was a little relieved. He was really worried that if Zheng Yujie also quarreled with him, he would be in deep trouble. "However, I won't give up." Zheng Yujie suddenly changed her tone and said confidently, "Whether you accept me now or in the future, I will always be waiting for you. I love you, and I will only marry you in this life. Even if you make me wait for a lifetime, I will still watch over you for a lifetime." "Why are you doing this?" Poplar Fruit said bitterly, "I'm not worth your—" Before he could finish his words, Zheng Yujie covered his mouth. Zheng Yujie took a step forward and put her white jade finger on Poplar Fruit's lips. She looked up at Poplar Fruit stubbornly and said, "Worth it." Poplar Fruit was a little shaken by her burning gaze, but Zheng Yujie suddenly withdrew her hand. She gently jumped on the grass with her hands behind her back and walked forward with her back facing Poplar Fruit. "You don't have to worry about me. I'm willing to do this. I believe that I can wait until the day you fall in love with me." Zheng Yujie's pleasant voice flew into Poplar Fruit's ears with the spring breeze. It was like the chirping of orioles in the mountain forest. It was very close, but it was also very ethereal. Poplar Fruit quickly unlocked the motorcycle and chased after her. He walked to Zheng Yujie's side and asked anxiously, "So are we still good friends now?" He didn't want to hear Zheng Yujie say that they didn't want to be friends or lovers again, but he was worried that today's sudden incident would make it impossible for them to be friends in the future. Zheng Yujie suddenly stopped and said with a smile, "Of course, we are still the same as before. I just want you to remember that I only have you in my heart. That's enough." "Okay, I've said so much and played for so long. I'm tired. I'm going to take the motorcycle." Zheng Yujie had regained her usual aura of a queen. She patted the back of the motorcycle, blinked her eyes, and said, "Little Fruit, why aren't you preparing the sedan?" Poplar Fruit quickly nodded. He got on the motorcycle first and turned the key to start the engine. Zheng Yujie rubbed Kiki's head and said with a smile, "Kiki, we're going to take the car." "Hee, we're going to take the car." Kiki also shouted excitedly. She even rubbed against the steering wheel and started the motorcycle on behalf of her father. Zheng Yujie took a step forward and sat on the motorcycle. She didn't say anything. She directly put her hands together and hugged Poplar Fruit's waist. her hot and delicate body pressed against him, leaving no gap. Poplar Fruit's body swayed. He raised his left hand that was holding the handlebar, but after hesitating for a moment, he still put it back. He sighed softly in his heart. Without saying anything, he started the motorcycle. When they got home, the two of them consciously returned to their previous state of mutual respect. It was as if they just went out to play, and the confession and tears didn't happen. Other than the fact that Poplar Fruit occasionally looked at Zheng Yujie a little strangely, Zheng Yujie was completely able to control her expression. She chatted with Su Jinfeng as if nothing had happened. After lunch, Zheng Yujie ran upstairs with Kiki in her arms. The two of them whispered on the big bed in Poplar Fruit's bedroom. "Kiki, today is your birthday." Zheng Yujie used her right index finger to gently hook Kiki's chin and said with a smile, "What's a birthday?" Kiki hugged her Barbie doll and sat on the bed. She raised her head and asked curiously, "Your birthday is the anniversary of your birth." Zheng Yujie laid down on the bed, kicked off her slippers, and gently swung her feet in the air as she explained. Kiki pouted her rosy little mouth and shook her head left and right, indicating that she didn't understand. Zheng Yujie supported her chin with her hands. She rolled her eyes and said, "You just have to remember that your birthday is a day where you can eat cake and open presents." Kiki still shook her head. "Cake." Zheng Yujie turned over and gestured in the air with her arms. Yuan, blow out the candles and make a wish. Then you can eat it." When it came to eating, Kiki's eyes lit up. She held the Barbie doll in her left hand and hooked Zheng Yujie's arm with her right hand. She shook and asked, "Auntie, is it delicious?" "Auntie, it's not delicious. The cake is delicious. It's super delicious," Zheng Yujie said with a smile. "Sweet cream, soft cake. Just thinking about it makes me salivate." Zheng Yujie even swallowed her saliva exaggeratedly. Kiki was drooling from Zheng Yujie's words. She looked at Zheng Yujie as she gestured the cake up and down. Her heart itched. "Kiki wants to eat." Kiki nodded her head firmly. "What do you want to eat?" Zheng Yujie teased her little face and gently swiped away the saliva that overflowed out. "Eat, eat." Kiki, who was still lacking in vocabulary, was stuck. She sat and twisted her body, racking her brains to think. "Egg." Zheng Yujie dragged her voice as she prompted. "Let's eat cake." Chi-Chi continued happily. "Kiki is so smart." Zheng Yujie smiled and patted her little head. Chapter 312. "Auntie, Kiki wants to eat cake." Kiki learned the word cake, and then the little glutton in her stomach was aroused by Zheng Yujie. So she acted coquettishly and begged Zheng Yujie to eat cake. "You can't eat it now, but you can eat it tonight," Zheng Yujie said with a smile. Her raised forearm was grabbed by Kiki and swung back and forth. "Kiki wants to eat it." Kiki did not give up. She began to push Zheng Yujie with her head, and then lay down and rolled around. From time to time, she put her feet on Zheng Yujie's flat abdomen. Her hair floated up because of the static on her clothes, and it was a mess. Okay. Annie has already asked Dad to buy it. Just wait a little longer, and you'll be able to eat it." Zheng Yujie used the delaying tactic. It was only then that Chi-Chi finally stopped. She lay side by side, with Zheng Yujie on her back, feeling very comfortable. She opened her eyes wide and reached out to grab the big hand that had been swinging for a while. Zheng Yujie also let her play with her left forearm like a toy. However, just when Kiki relaxed a little and did not hold it, Zheng Yujie deliberately raised her forearm again. "Hey!" Kiki exerted strength in her waist, and her body slightly leaned back to grab it again. However, just as she grabbed it, it bounced back as if it was loaded with a spring. "Ha ha ha!" Kiki screamed and laughed as if she had discovered something amazing. She bent over again to hold Zheng Yujie's left forearm and pulled it down with her own body weight. At this time, Zheng Yujie suddenly turned over and her right arm pressed on Kiki's body. Kiki was played like this, and she was even more excited. She raised her head and laughed nonstop. Zheng Yujie did not dare to press on Kiki for too long. She raised her right arm and gently brushed Kiki's cute little face. She gently smoothed her scattered hair and asked gently, "Kiki, is it fun?" "It's fun." Chi-Chi's big eyes turned into curved slits as she laughed. She kicked her legs in the air and was incredibly happy. Auntie, let me tell you. Zhang Yujie waited until Kiki was a little tired from laughing and laid down beside her. She said with a smile, besides eating cake, there's another very fun thing to do on a birthday. That is to open a present. Zhang Yujie said mysteriously. Annie has prepared a super birthday present for Kiki. Kiki will love it. What is a present? Kiki asked curiously. She remembered the words that Zhang Yujie said most often in the phone call, and it seemed to be related to her. A present is a box which contains what Kiki wants the most. Zhang Yujie explained with a smile. Kiki nodded with her mouth open, as if she understood. Tell Annie, what does Kiki want the most? Zhang Yujie asked with a smile. Kiki wants Papa, Kiki said happily. Zhang Yujie was stunned. She chuckled and said, besides Papa, what else does Kiki want? Where's Goldie? Because of Zhang Yujie's question, Kiki's attention turned to Goldie. She turned over, raised her head with her two forearms, and turned her head to look for Goldie. Your Papa won't let it come up. Zhang Yujie said, Goldie is playing downstairs. Alas, Kiki sighed softly like a little dolt. She really wanted to play with Goldie, but at noon, she felt that the big bed was soft and comfortable, so she didn't want to get off. Don't sigh. Zhang Yujie teased Kiki's soft waist with her finger and said with a smile, women should smile, not sigh all the time. You'll grow old quickly. Chi-Chi was tickled by her and giggled as she shrank back. After being interrupted by Kiki, Zhang Yujie found that the topic of explaining the word present to Kiki had gone off topic, and there was no way to go back to the topic. Zhang Yujie didn't say anything. She just lay there and watched Kiki roll around on the bed by herself. Chi-Chi even tried to stand up and walk a few steps on her own. She walked rather unsteadily, but she accidentally kicked the messy quilt with her little foot, and her whole body slipped and fell into the quilt. After a long time, she climbed out of the quilt and smiled at Zhang Yujie with messy hair. Zhang Yujie hooked her finger at Kiki and let her roll all the way to her side. She gently hugged Kiki with her left hand, looked at her pink little face, and asked in a low voice, Kiki, do you like Auntie? Yes. Kiki answered very straightforwardly. She even raised her hand to touch Zhang Yujie's face. Both of their faces were very smooth. Kiki's face was made of water, and Zhang Yujie had always paid attention to maintaining her skin. She ate well and rarely used makeup, so her skin was not worse than that of a teenage girl. Zhang Yujie looked at the door guiltily and whispered in Kiki's ear, Then what about Fong Bei? Bei. Kiki was very happy when she heard the name, and her voice rose an octave. She struggled to sit up and looked around. Where's Bei? Bei didn't come. Auntie is asking you. Does Kiki like Bei? Zhang Yujie felt that it was unnecessary for her to ask this question again. Kiki's performance just now was more convincing than any words. Kiki nodded seriously and said in a childish voice, Yes, Kiki liked Bei. Zhang Yujie opened her mouth, wanting to say something but hesitated. She wanted to ask Kiki, between her and Fong Bei, who did Kiki like the most. However, she still didn't ask, because the answer was very obvious. Kiki was more excited than ever when she heard Fong Bei's name. This also confirmed her guess. Zhang Yujie's eyes were a little gloomy, but after a while, she regained her spirit. Poplar fruit. In your heart, your daughter is still the most important. Zhang Yujie thought through the key point, and she muttered to herself in a voice that only she could hear. It was very obvious. Zhang Yujie combined the photos she saw in the past and easily guessed it. Duan Xueqing also liked poplar fruit so much. So why was poplar fruit indifferent to her? Because in those photos, there wasn't a single one of Duan Xueqing hugging Kiki. Compared to Duan Xueqing, the girl named Fong Bei was much more intimate with Kiki. As a matter of fact, just mentioning Fong Bei to Kiki made her this happy, which meant that Fong Bei was just a little less important than poplar fruit in her heart. Too sly, Zhang Yujie muttered. Starting from Kiki's side to conquer poplar fruit? Zhang Yujie looked at Kiki, who was energetically rolling around on the bed and tangling with the blanket. Her pearly white teeth lightly bit her lower lip, and she softly said, "Humph, humph, then I could do it too. I will also make Kiki like me." Chapter 313. Where's Papa? After playing around for a while, Chi-Chi's sleepiness from the afternoon welled up. She lay on the big bed with her eyes half closed and leaned close to Zheng Yujie as she murmured. Zheng Yujie gently tidied up Kiki's hanging bangs and said softly, "He bought a cake for Kiki. Kiki, go to sleep. When you wake up, you'll have cake to eat." Cake. Kiki closed her eyes and smacked her little mouth gently. There was a happy smile on her face. She had gradually drifted off to dreamland, but it was with a longing for the cake. She didn't know if the shape of the cake would really appear in her beautiful dream. Perhaps it would be the most delicious shape she could think of. Zheng Yujie accompanied Kiki until she fell asleep. Then she gently carried Kiki to the baby bed and covered her with a small quilt. Poplar Fruit had just come. Seeing that she was playing happily with Kiki, Zheng Yujie was very curious. Closing the door that blocked the strong light outside, Zheng Yujie went to look for him. "Auntie, where's Poplar Fruit?" Zheng Yujie asked Su Jinfeng, who was sitting under the shade of a tree. "You're awake." Su Jinfeng smiled and talked to Zheng Yujie. She pointed to the small room next to the living room on the first floor and said, "He's playing on the computer. He never sleeps at noon. No matter how many times I say it, it's useless." Zheng Yujie chatted with Su Jinfeng for a while and then walked to the small room. Before she reached the door, she heard the sound of typing on the keyboard. If it was someone else, they would probably think that Poplar Fruit was playing games. But Zheng Yujie, who had lived with Poplar Fruit for a few days, knew that Poplar Fruit was typing again. Pushing the door open, Zheng Yujie leaned against the doorframe with a smile and asked, "Why are you hiding here alone?" Poplar Fruit stopped typing and put down the notebook. He turned his head and smiled. "Work. Is Kiki asleep?" "She's asleep." Zheng Yujie walked up and came behind Poplar Fruit. She looked at his computer and asked, "You have to work when you go back to your hometown for a vacation? Do you have to be so diligent?" "Miss, this is your list, okay?" Yangwo pointed at the computer and pouted. "I'm trying my best to rush the manuscript for you. There are still a few dozen pages left before Fantasy Drifts is finished. I just want you to bring it back with you when you go back." "Yo, I've only been here for 2 days, and you want me to go back?" Zheng Yujie sat down next to Poplar Fruit. Her upper body was on the table, and she looked at Poplar Fruit with a slanted face. With a burning gaze, Poplar Fruit turned to look at the computer with some embarrassment. He continued to type on the keyboard and replied, "No, you can play for as many days as you want. I'm just worried." "Stop, I just want the first sentence," Zheng Yujie said cheerfully. In the past, Poplar Fruit often talked to her while doing other things. Even if he was a translator, not only was his thinking not messy, but his speed was as usual. Zheng Yujie was already used to it. "Right." Zheng Yujie poked Poplar Fruit and asked, "Today is your daughter's birthday. Aren't you going to spend some time preparing?" "I'm prepared. I bought some things yesterday. When my brother-in-law comes back tonight, he'll bring back the cake we ordered yesterday. Then everything will be fine," Poplar Fruit said without turning his head. "That's it?" Zheng Yujie asked with dissatisfaction. "What else do you want?" Poplar Fruit asked back. "At least have a party and invite all the children in the village to play together." Zheng Yujie planned for Poplar Fruit. "Prepare soda, snacks, and some fruit. Everyone will play games first, then push out the cake. Everyone will sing the birthday song to Kiki, and finally, Poplar Fruit's hand stopped. He turned his head, and before Zheng Yujie finished, he interrupted, Hey, stop. My daughter is not a princess of some royal family. Is there need to make it so grand?" Poplar Fruit laughed. "Are you being sarcastic?" Zheng Yujie waved her fist at Poplar Fruit and said with dissatisfaction, "A party is not only for royalty. Don't you want to make it more lively so that everyone can come and give Kiki their blessings? It won't cost much. Forget it." Poplar Fruit shook his head and said, "I just want to give Kiki a happy birthday. It doesn't need to be too grand, and it doesn't need a lot of people to participate. As long as the family gets together, there will be blessings and laughter. That's enough." Zheng Yujie's view on this point was different from Poplar Fruit's. This might have something to do with her experience growing up, but she didn't insist in the end. She thought about it and felt that it was indeed difficult to organize a party in the countryside. She thought that it would be better to see what Poplar Fruit could do with this birthday party. In Beijing, in Li Zichao's mansion, there was the sound of things breaking. The camera zoomed in, and it could be seen that Li Zichao was furious. He kicked over a table and roared into the phone with blue veins popping out. Li Qingqiao, you told me to forget it. Where did your courage go? You can't even handle a country bumpkin? Are you still a descendant of the Li family? Li Zichao didn't care about anything else and scolded the person on the other side of the phone. Li Qingqiao was Li Zichao's cousin. His father, who was Li Zichao's third uncle, was a director with some power in Guangdong province. His position wasn't high, but because of his family background, even the senior officials had to give him face sometimes. This time, Poplar Fruit's matter was ordered by Li Zichao. Li Qingqiao, of course, faked an imperial edict and used his father's name to pressure a lot of people. Brother, how can I not care about your matter? Li Qingqiao said with grievance. Yang Dang made a move, so what can I do? He's a deputy governor with real power. My father is just a small director, and he scolded me when he came back. Who is Yang Dang? Li Zichao seemed to have heard of this name before and asked with a frown. I don't know. His surname is also Yang. Could he be a relative of that Poplar Fruit? Li Qingqiao asked. Forget it. Li Zichao sneered. He's just a nobody. How can he have such a powerful relative? Wait a minute. Li Zichao frowned and thought for a moment, then patted the table and said, Fuck, Yang Dang, he's a member of the Zheng family. You mean, the demon king Zheng Yujia made a move? Li Qingqiao asked with fear. If it's not her, then who else? Li Zichao said with a gloomy face. Then what should we do? Li Qingqiao was also a coward without his own opinion. Forget it. Don't worry about it. I'll think of a way. Li Zichao angrily hung up the phone. He paced back and forth in a room with his arms around his chest and thought with annoyance. She actually dares to protect that little white face? I didn't see her at the door these past few days. Could it be that she wanted to find him? It must be, otherwise how could she mess up my plan? Didn't she see those photos? Why would she? Fuck, Zheng Yujia. You still want the two women to work together? Li Zichao's mind emerged with this image and became more and more annoyed. Suddenly, he fiercely threw the phone to the ground. With a clatter, the battery, the back case, and the screen broke into pieces and scattered on the ground. Fuck, you're shameless, but I don't believe that your Zheng family is shameless. Just you wait. Li Zichao shouted with a ferocious face. Chapter 314. In the evening, Yang Chongwan and the others drove Poplar Fruit's Land Rover back home. Poplar Fruit hurriedly asked them to hide the cake first. Kiki had been pestering him for the whole afternoon, clamoring to eat the cake. Now, he was going to feed her some porridge. Poplar Fruit didn't want Kiki to go on strike. Zheng Yujia, the instigator, was secretly laughing. When Poplar Fruit stared at her, she stared back at him without showing any weakness. She patted her chest and said, I'm sitting here. What can you do to me? Papa, where's the cake? Kiki turned her head, avoided Poplar Fruit's spoon, and asked while swallowing her saliva. The cake can only be eaten at night. Poplar Fruit explained again helplessly. Kiki wants to eat cake. Kiki glanced at the porridge with shredded meat and vegetables floating in the spoon, shook her head, and said, Just eat 2 mouthfuls, and then I'll give you the cake, okay? Poplar Fruit coaxed. If you don't eat, there will be no cake tonight. Kiki hesitated for a moment. In the end, the temptation of the cake was greater. She finally opened her mouth under her father's coercion. After feeding Kiki half a bowl of porridge with difficulty, Poplar Fruit didn't have time to eat. He hurriedly tidied up his room, tidied up Zheng Yujia's messy shoes and clothes on the floor, and then wiped the floor and put the small things he prepared on the floor. Everything was ready. They were waiting for everyone to come and celebrate Kiki's birthday after dinner. Because they had to eat the cake later, everyone only ate half of the rice. Then they closed the door early and gathered in Poplar Fruit's room on the 2nd floor. Even Gold was washed clean by Yanghua, and he followed them with special permission. The room was full of Kiki's smell. After Gold came up, It was particularly happy and couldn't help but wander around. In order to prevent Gold from messing up the decorations he had painstakingly arranged, Poplar Fruit quickly held it down. This is? Zhang Yujie was familiar with it. She had seen her little nephew hold this ceremony before. She smiled and asked, Poplar Fruit, are you going to hold a birthday party? Yes. Poplar Fruit said solemnly. What's the point of holding a birthday party? Zhang Yujie disdainfully curled her lips. Su Jinfeng also pulled Yang Lingjie to the side and agreed. That's right, we don't like this stuff here. Su Jinfeng had long thought that Poplar Fruit had nothing better to do. However, she didn't notice that Yang Lingjie's eyes were attracted by the small trinkets placed in a circle. He stared straight at them. When Xiao Jie was 1 year old, Yang Ping recalled with a smile. We gathered together as a family to have a meal. At that time, Poplar Fruit, you were still in school. Don't be so discouraging, Poplar Fruit protested. Although it may not be true, this ceremony is a traditional custom in our country. It will be a very rare memory in the future. I don't think this is useful to Chi-Chi at all, Zhang Yujie said confidently as she looked at the circle of antique-looking objects. Just wait and see. Kiki will definitely choose her favorite thing. Poplar Fruit took out a small booklet from his trouser pocket and said with a smile, I've prepared everything. It's written on it what it means to hold a birthday party. Don't you have a photographic memory? Why do you need a secret booklet? Zhang Yujie said with a smile. You don't understand. This is a ceremony, Poplar Fruit emphasized. He confidently carried Kiki to the center of the circle and patiently pointed at the things placed on the circle. He introduced them to Kiki. This is a small scissors. This is a small abacus. Kiki followed his finger and pointed at them bit by bit, as if she understood. Okay, next, it's up to you, Kiki. Poplar Fruit put Kiki down and then returned to the outside of the circle. He smiled and waved. Kiki, let Dad see. What do you want the most? Kiki looked at her father in confusion. She didn't know what he wanted her to do. However, when she saw him waving, Kiki's eyes lit up. Choose quickly. Choose quickly. Poplar Fruit squatted there and called out softly. Zhang Yujie and the rest held back their laughter as they looked at Poplar Fruit's comical appearance. Chi-Chi supported herself with one hand on the ground and stood up shakily. Although she walked crookedly, she smoothly stepped over a small seal and walked towards her father's direction. However, Chi-Chi still hadn't fully learned how to walk after all, so she accidentally tripped and fell forward. Oh, Kiki cried out clumsily. Then, she found herself falling into her father's wide embrace. Kiki raised her head to look at her father and laughed foolishly. Ha ha! Zhang Yujie couldn't hold it in anymore and laughed loudly with Yang Ping and the rest. Poplar Fruit couldn't hold it in and said awkwardly, that doesn't count. Let's do it again. After that, he carried Kiki back to the center of the circle. This time, Zhang Yujie rolled her eyes and took Kiki's toys from the bed. There were dolls, ducklings, and Kiki's favorite Barbie doll. She placed them in a line in front of her and called out softly, Kiki, Kiki, look here. Yujie, you're causing trouble again. Before Poplar Fruit could finish his words, he saw his daughter happily crawling towards Zhang Yujie. To be exact, she was crawling towards her toys. On the way, she met Poplar Fruit's small objects in front of her. Kiki simply pushed them away without hesitation. Poplar Fruit felt bitter and almost cried. He looked gloomily at his daughter, who was hugging the Barbie doll and didn't want to let go. He sighed and said, forget it, I give up. You're right. It doesn't work at all. Actually, it did work. However, it had nothing to do with Kiki. Poplar Fruit was just about to clean up the mess when he realized that someone was faster than him. Yang Lingjie couldn't hold it in anymore. When Su Jinfeng wasn't paying attention, he broke free and ran up to her. He wantonly collected the things that he had been eyeing for a long time. He was holding a small abacus in his left hand and a small sword in his armpit. His right hand grabbed a colorful picture book on the ground and started reading it with great interest. Yang Lingjie, you're being naughty again. Yang Ping scolded him in her hometown dialect. Don't mess with Uncle's things. Uncle said he doesn't want them anymore. Yang Lingjie retorted unhappily. Uncle, don't you think so? Poplar Fruit laughed. Yes, yes. If you want them, take them all. He turned his head and smiled at Yang Ping. It seems that I should have decisively come back that year. If I had done a catch the week for Shao Jia, it definitely wouldn't be like now. I said that the things you chose are not good. Zheng Yujia laughed. Who still uses these antiques to catch the week? If it were a pearl necklace or an MP3 player for listening to music, it would definitely be much better than these. No matter what, Poplar Fruit's Catch the Week was a complete failure. Instead, it was Yang Linjia who got a bargain. His toy box had a lot of new toys. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 315. Suddenly, all the lights in the room went out, and it was so dark that one couldn't even see one's fingers. Quick, quick! Poplar Fruit's voice sounded. Brother-in-law, the lights are off, bring it here. He was standing at the door and shouting at Yang Chongwan, who had just come up the stairs with a lit candle on the cake. Everyone was holding their breath and smiling, waiting for the touching scene to come. Zheng Yujia was also ready to lead everyone to sing the birthday song the moment the cake came in. However, things didn't go as planned. Wow! Kiki was scared by the darkness. At this time, there was no one around her, and she was just holding the Barbie doll. In panic and fear, she cried loudly, Papa, Papa, turn on the lights, turn on the lights. Poplar Fruit heard that his baby daughter was unhappy and hurriedly shouted. Everyone was in a hurry and then turned on the lights again. The light filled the whole room again. Poplar Fruit hurried over, picked up his daughter, and coaxed, Kiki, don't cry, Dad is here. Today, Poplar Fruit could be said to be very depressed. Until now, the whole birthday celebration had not gone smoothly. Kiki didn't pay attention to him. Just when he turned off the lights and was about to serve the cake, Kiki was scared and cried again. Poplar Fruit wiped the tears of his daughter and pointed to Yang Chongwan, who was standing awkwardly at the door, and said, Kiki, today is your birthday. You can't cry. Didn't Kiki want to eat cake today? Look, here's the cake. He waved his hand to let Yang Chongwan in and said with a wry smile, Come in, it's okay. Don't turn off the lights, that's all. Being held by her father, Kiki, who was not so scared, heard the word cake. She suddenly stopped crying and looked in the direction her father was pointing. Cake? Kiki asked with a choked voice. She realized that the white thing that her father was pointing at with a candle was not what she had imagined at all. Zheng Yujia moved a small stool over and asked Yang Chongwan to put down the cake. She smiled and said to Kiki, Yes, this is the cake. Kiki, let Annie tell you, the cake is very delicious. Poplar Fruit sat cross-legged in front of the cake with Kiki in his arms. Kiki leaned closer and looked at the cake curiously. She couldn't find anything delicious about it. Yang Linjia, who was sitting in his grandmother's arms, was already drooling. From the moment the cake appeared, his gaze had never left it. Everyone, come over here. Zheng Yujia, who was acting as the MC, clapped her hands and said with a smile, We're going to sing the birthday song. Under the lead of Zheng Yujia, everyone began to sing. Even Yang Tai, who was somewhat silent, grinned and sang. Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you. As Chi-Chi listened to the beautiful melody, she happily turned left and right to look at everyone. There's also an English version. Zheng Yujia said briefly and then sang, Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you. Now, only Yang Ping and Yang Chongwan could sing along. Yang Tai, Su Jinfeng, and Yang Linjia could only open their mouths to the rhythm. Yang Ping's interest was piqued. She said excitedly, There's also a Cantonese version. Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you every year, happy birthday to you. At this moment, Zheng Yujia was speechless. She didn't know Cantonese. Although she had heard this song on the internet before, she could only hum along with everyone. Congratulations. Finally, everyone cupped their hands and congratulated Kiki with a smile. Happy birthday to Kiki. Zheng Yujia was the first to shout with a smile. Kiki, grow up and grow taller. This was Su Jinfeng's blessing. Of course, she used her hometown's dialect. Although Kiki didn't quite understand the meaning of everyone singing, she was infected by the festive sound and atmosphere. She smiled through her tears and waved her little hands happily. Kiki, make a wish and blow out the candles. Zheng Yujie waved her right arm and shouted. Forget about making a wish. It's too difficult for her to understand. Poplar Fruit smiled and waved his hand. He began to teach Kiki how to blow out the candles step by step. He picked up an extra candle and lit it with a lighter. Then, he explained and blew it out to demonstrate to Kiki. Come, come. Poplar Fruit smiled and nudged Kiki. He pointed to the candle on the cake and said with a smile, Kiki, blow it out. Kiki was still very smart. Although this was a new experience, she still remembered her father's actions. Under her father's encouragement, Kiki moved her head very close to the cake and then looked back at her father. Blow it. Poplar Fruit smiled and encouraged her. He pouted his lips and made a blowing gesture. Zheng Yujie and the others all held their breaths and watched attentively. They were afraid that they would blow out the candle if they breathed too hard. Kiki finally turned her head and looked at the dancing candlelight very seriously. She puffed up her mouth forcefully, aimed at the flame of the candle, and suddenly puff. There was a long cracking sound. They saw Kiki spurt out some saliva, but there was no air at all. The candle shook a little, but still stood firm. She was very proud of herself, as if she had mastered a peerless martial art. If it wasn't for Poplar Fruit holding her back, she would have continued to spurt saliva at the cake. So disgusting. Young Linjie shouted loudly. He pointed at the cake and said to Su Jinfeng, Grandma, her snot bubbles are running out. Don't talk nonsense. Su Jinfeng quickly covered Yang Linjie's mouth. Children's words carried no harm. Yang Linjie still didn't know that he had spoiled the mood. It's okay. You just have to scrape off the top layer later. Yang Ping smiled. Zheng Yujie held Kiki's little hand and said to her with a smile, Kiki, look at how Annie blows it. She put Kiki's little hand in front of her mouth and gently blew on it. Then she put her hand in front of Kiki's mouth, looked at Kiki with an encouraging look, and said, Come on, Kiki also try. Blinking her big eyes, Kiki looked at Zheng Yujie, and then, puff. Finally, after several attempts, Chi-Chi was finally able to blow out air. All right, Zheng Yujie praised. Kiki is so smart. Kiki, remember, this is blowing. She also let Kiki feel it with her own hand. Go blow out the candle. Seeing Kiki learning to blow under Zheng Yujie's guidance, Poplar Fruit smiled and pushed his daughter in the direction of the cake. Kiki tried to blow out the candle for the second time. Facing the candle, Kiki took a deep breath. Her little belly bulged, and then she blew it out. A fragrant wind blew, but the candle flame didn't move. However, Kiki's bangs on her forehead danced wildly. She actually blew it with her lower lip. Poplar Fruit felt like he was going crazy. However, someone was even crazier than him. Yang Lin just shouted, I'll blow it. He puffed up his mouth and blew a breath. The stubborn candle flame that stood for a long time swayed and finally went out. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 316. Kiki was having fun blowing her hair when the candle suddenly went out. Her eyes were wide open, and she was stunned for a moment. She suddenly turned around, pulled her father's little finger, shook her head, and cried. Of course, Kiki's crying was all talk and no action, or it could be said that there were no tears at all. It was just a crying voice, pointing at Yang Linjie and acting coquettishly to her father. It was as if she was accusing Yang Linjie of being dishonest as a brother and stealing his sister's toy. Looking at Kiki complaining, Goldie was not to be outdone. It arched its body beside Kiki and barked twice at Yang Linjie. Then it wagged its tail and retreated behind Poplar Fruit. It was like a puppet army in World War II, a dog relying on its master's power. Huh! All the adults in the circle burst into laughter. Yang Ping rubbed Yang Linjie's little round head and rebuked, See, this is what you get for bullying your sister. What's wrong? Is it because your brother blew out your candle? Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. Kiki nodded her head hard, pouted her mouth, and felt wronged. It's fine if it's blown out. You don't know how to blow it anyway, right? Poplar Fruit laughed. He reached out and pulled out the candle, planning to let it go. But just as he pulled it out, Kiki didn't let it go. Her fingers grabbed onto Poplar Fruit's collar, shook and pulled, and made protesting sounds. "What's wrong?" Poplar Fruit asked, puzzled. "Blow, blow." Kiki pointed at the candle and said to her father with some dissatisfaction, "You still want to blow out the candle?" Poplar Fruit thought for a moment and asked as he replaced the candle with a longer one. "Yes, yes." Kiki nodded her head hard and then looked at her father with hope. "All right." Poplar Fruit smiled bitterly as he took out the lighter he borrowed from Yang Tai and put the candle back in. "Watch Daddy teach you how to blow." Yang Wu once again demonstrated step by step, teaching Chi-Chi how to puff up her mouth and blow air in front of her. After a while, Kiki finally got the hang of it. With her father's help, she walked to the front of the cake. Because the cake was relatively large, Poplar Fruit was not too worried that Kiki's hair would be burned by the candle in the middle. However, he still carefully held Kiki's waist. Everyone held their breaths as they watched Kiki's performance. As for Yang Lingjie, who loved to cause trouble the most, he was sealed off by Yang Ping. His mouth was pinched into a line by Yang Ping's hands. He found it very amusing, his eyes curved into crescents. Kiki's little face was tense, and she looked very serious. She remembered her father's guidance, and her little mouth pouted as she took a deep breath. Her mouth was wide open as she sucked. Poplar Fruit laughed and said, "All right, you can blow now." Kiki suddenly blew forward. This time, she did not spit out a lot of saliva, nor did she blow in another direction. Instead, she blew directly at the candle. Blowing out a lot of candles was a test of one's lung capacity. Therefore, the older a person was, the more difficult it was to blow out a whole candle in one breath. However, Kiki only had one candle. Under her forceful blow, the candle flame shook and finally went out. A wisp of white smoke floated up. However, because she used too much force, Kiki fell forward. Although Poplar Fruit noticed it early and grabbed Kiki, her little head could not avoid brushing past the cake. There was a charmingly naive little panda on top of the cake, but it was flattened by Kiki. "Hey, hey!" Zhang Yujie exclaimed. It's okay, it's okay." Poplar Fruit pulled his daughter up. Kiki giggled to herself. Poplar Fruit looked at his daughter and was stunned for a moment. He could not help but laugh. "What's wrong?" Because of the angle, Zhang Yujie saw that everyone else was laughing. She went over to take a look, and for a moment, she also laughed. "Wait a minute. Let me take a picture." Zhang Yujie quickly took out her phone and took a picture of Kiki. Of course, Poplar Fruit, who was holding his daughter and sitting in front of the cake, was also in the picture. How should one describe Kiki's current appearance? Her little nose and little mouth had just moved to the top of the cake, and in the end, there was a layer of cream. It was exactly like a traditional Chinese double-act performance, with a performer who sat in front of the chair had his nose and mouth stuck to Big White's nose and mouth. Kiki felt that her mouth was sticky, so she stuck out her pink little tongue to lick it. This lick was amazing. It was as if Pandora's box had been opened. Kiki's eyes suddenly lit up as if they had been replaced with a 100-watt light bulb. Then, she began to greedily lick the cream on her lips and around her mouth. She even stuck her tongue out long and high, trying to reach the cream on the tip of her nose. Poplar Fruit had just turned around to take 2 pieces of tissue when he saw his daughter licking the cream on the tip of her nose. He was stunned. Zhang Yujie covered her mouth and laughed. "Poplar Fruit, look at your daughter's tongue. It's so long." It was indeed long. Most people couldn't lick their own noses, not even Poplar Fruit. However, Kiki did it. Poplar Fruit shook his head and smiled at Zhang Yujie. "Let's cut the cake. Kiki has blown out the candles. Everyone, let's eat the cake." Cake! Yang Lingjie was the first to cheer. Zhang Yujie was in charge of cutting the cake for everyone. She didn't scrape off the top layer of the cake. If she did, the cake wouldn't look good. Moreover, there were some fruits on top. The others didn't have any objections. Poplar Fruit's family were all from the countryside. Why would they care so much? In the past, when they ate at wedding banquets, they didn't care about other people's saliva at all. As for Yang Lingjie, he had long forgotten what he had just said. In his eyes, there was only delicious cake. There's still so much left. Why are you greedy for that little bit on your nose? Poplar Fruit smiled and wiped the places on his daughter's nose that she couldn't reach. Poplar Fruit didn't wipe the other places that were still wet. Anyway, Kiki would have to paste it on when she ate the cake later. Poplar Fruit didn't give Kiki too much cream. Children who ate too much cream would have diarrhea. Therefore, he used a small fork to cut the cake into small pieces. Then he dipped a little bit of cream on the cake and fed it to Kiki. Poplar Fruit was busy feeding his daughter. Zheng Yujie cut a large piece of cake for him to dry. Zheng Yujie ate the cake on her plate while glancing at Poplar Fruit and the large piece of cake. She wondered if she should feed it to Poplar Fruit. But in the end, she gave up the idea. If no one else was around, Zheng Yujie would boldly feed Poplar Fruit. Whether he wanted it or not, he would have to eat it even if he didn't want it. But now that his family was around, Poplar Fruit definitely wouldn't like her to act so intimately on her own accord. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 317. The cake was very big, but Kiki could only eat a small plate. Although Kiki greedily finished it and still opened her mouth to express that she wanted more, Poplar Fruit smiled and touched Kiki's round belly. He smiled and said, "You can't eat anymore. Look at yourself, you're so full." After saying that, Poplar Fruit picked up his plate, forked the cake, and took a bite. Kiki opened her mouth, only to find that her father had put the cake into his mouth. She immediately pouted and pulled at her father's clothes. She was just about to grunt in protest. However, she gently opened her mouth and burped. The sound wasn't loud, but it trembled. She felt a little strange and shy, and her little face was red. "See, even you know that you can't eat anymore." Poplar Fruit smiled and patted Kiki's little butt. Kiki didn't pester her father anymore. Instead, she leaned into her father's arms and watched her father eat a lot of the big cake. Then, her little eyes turned to Yang Lingjie. She found that her little brother had finished eating a piece of cake. He cut another piece for himself and started eating. Kiki looked at Yang Lingjie's mouth full of cream. She couldn't help but lick her lips as if she was savoring the taste of the cream. Yang Lingjie's mouth was stuffed with a piece of cake, and he began to talk. Although his voice was a little intermittent, he still said loudly, "When I grow up, I want to be like my mother and earn a lot of money." Because Yang Lingjie had already started to attend preschool, he learned a little Mandarin. Although it wasn't very good, he still tried his best to speak with his mother. His Mandarin was even better than Yang Tai's, so Zheng Yujie could understand. Yang Ping smiled and slapped him on the butt. She rebuked, "In your eyes, your mother only knows how to earn money?" Poplar Fruit smiled and asked, "Why do you want to earn a lot of money? Do you want to earn a lot of money to marry a wife?" "No." After Yang Lingjie swallowed the cake, he said seriously, "If I earn a lot of money, I can buy a lot of cakes." He gestured with his hands and feet. "I want to buy a cake that can fill the whole house. A delicious cake, a big cake." Everyone couldn't help but laugh. Poplar Fruit smiled and said to Yang Ping, "Oh, amazing. Sister, you gave birth to a future millionaire." "What millionaire? He's obviously a foodie." Yang Ping also laughed and patted Yang Chongwan's shoulder. Children's words carried no harm. Everyone found it funny and interesting. But in this house, there was someone who bought Yang Lingjie's food. Chi-Chi's eyes were wide open as she watched Yang Lingjie waving his hands and drawing pancakes in a daze. It was as if there really was a room full of pancakes in front of her eyes. She was so hungry that her saliva was flowing out. After Yang Lingjie finished speaking, he began to eat his cake again. After finishing this plate, Yang Ping didn't give him any more. So, he licked the plate and his fingers. "Brother," Kiki called out to Yang Lingjie timidly. When she saw Yang Lingjie looking over, she said weakly, "Kiki wants to eat cake too." Kiki took Yang Lingjie's words seriously. The adults suddenly burst into laughter, but the two little ones didn't care. "No!" Yang Lingjie proudly raised his head and said, "That's my cake. I'm not giving it to you." Chi-Chi was immediately discouraged. She pouted and looked at her father with some grievance. In the end, she couldn't ask for help. Then, she pitifully turned to Yang Lingjie, looking like she was about to cry. It had to be said that Kiki's big, pitiful eyes were very lethal. Yang Lingjie was embarrassed by Kiki's gaze. He pursed his lips and said, "Okay, I can't finish it anyway. I'll share it with you." Kiki finally smiled brightly. Yang Ping patted Yang Lingjia's head lovingly and smiled. "That's right. Brother should give in to his sister. My daughter can't do it." Poplar Fruit smiled and shook his head. He said to everyone, "I have to watch over her in the future. Otherwise, she'll be tricked by a lollipop and a piece of cake." After eating the cake, Zheng Yujia didn't wait for the mess to be cleaned up. She couldn't wait to announce that it was time to open the gifts. After that, she wiggled her butt and got up from the ground. She excitedly ran to the guest room next door and took her long gift box. Poplar Fruit opened the closet and took out about 10 boxes of different sizes. They were all gifts from his friends in Yangcheng. Yang Ping had already prepared 2 gifts. Su Jinfeng and Yang Tai didn't know how to choose gifts, so she directly represented the 2 elders. "Wow." Zheng Yujia held Kiki's hand and said happily, "So many gifts. Kiki, are you happy?" Kiki pretended to know and nodded. She said, "Happy." She was probably still immersed in the memory of the delicious cake. "This is from Uncle Mosquito." Poplar Fruit took out a square box and introduced it to Kiki with a smile. "Let's open it from him. Let's see. What is this? Wow, antler hat." Under Kiki's gaze, Poplar Fruit tore open the colorful packaging of the box. He then opened the box and took out a small red hat. The hat looked like a top hat, but there were 2 small and cute yellow antlers on the top. Poplar Fruit shook it and asked with a smile, "Do you like it?" Of course, Kiki liked it. She waved her hand happily, and Poplar Fruit put it on for her. Zheng Yujia took out her phone and turned on the selfie function. She used it as a mirror and gestured to Kiki. Kiki shyly covered her eyes, but her smiling mouth exposed her feelings. Yao Dehua and other friends who played with Poplar Fruit gave a lot of gifts. They were all small toys. For example, Yao Dehua gave a big white bear. Poplar Fruit didn't know whether to laugh or cry and put it aside. The bear couldn't even fit in Kiki's pram. Then his sister and the others gave a snow-white princess dress and a silver ankle bracelet. In Poplar Fruit's hometown, there was an ancient custom. Children could grow up healthily with this kind of thin, ring-shaped ankle bracelet. Kiki would look beautiful in the princess dress. As for the ankle bracelet, "Sister, why don't we give this to Jia?" Poplar Fruit scratched his head embarrassedly and said, "I don't want Kiki to wear accessories at such a young age." Yang Ping rolled her eyes at him and smiled. "How can we take back a birthday gift? You can keep it. It doesn't matter if you wear it or not. We don't do superstitious things anyway." She even joked, "If we keep it, it could be a family heirloom." Our Yang family doesn't seem to have any family heirlooms. Chapter 3:18. In the end, there were only 2 gifts left for the finale. Zheng Yujia saved her gift for last. The other gift was from Fong Beibei. Poplar Fruit didn't open it because he felt that it would be awkward to say Fong Beibei's name in front of Zheng Yujia. However, at this point, he had to open it even if he didn't want to. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and glanced at Zheng Yujia. Zheng Yujia was still sitting there with a smile on her face while holding Kiki. She didn't think too much about it. She was just waiting for this gift to be opened quickly so that it would be her turn to open the big gift. This. Poplar Fruit swallowed his saliva and made up his mind. He said, "Kiki, this gift is from Beibei." He said it very cleanly and concisely, even omitting the word, "oh," that was used to make Kiki happy. The 2 people in front of him immediately reacted. Kiki's eyes lit up when she heard Fong Beibei's name. She stared at the square box in Poplar Fruit's hand and waved excitedly. "Beibei." Zheng Yujia's smile obviously froze. Zheng Yujia had repeated this name many times over the past few days. Hearing it made her heart ache. However, she immediately recovered her normal smile and pretended to be very good. However, no matter how she pretended, Poplar Fruit still noticed it. Poplar Fruit, who had a low EQ, noticed it, let alone the sharp-minded Yang Ping and Su Jinfeng. When they heard this name and saw Zheng Yujia's reaction, they muttered in their hearts. What was done could not be undone. Poplar Fruit could only pretend that he didn't see it and continued to open the gift. Tearing open the pink packaging and opening the small white box, Poplar Fruit took out a beautiful phonograph from the box. It should be said that it was a small wooden carving that looked like a phonograph. This wooden carving was very delicate, and the phonograph was lifelike, as if it could move. Well, Kiki, Bebe gave you a beautiful phonograph. Well, it's a wooden carving. Poplar Fruit smiled and looked at it. He found that Fong Bebe's wooden carving should be custom-made. It was very light, and the corners of the phonograph were polished so that Kiki wouldn't accidentally drop it and hurt herself. What wooden carving? Zheng Yu just suddenly snatched the wooden carving from Poplar Fruit's hand and said disdainfully, "This is obviously a music box." Poplar Fruit opened his mouth and put down his outstretched hand. He trusted Zheng Yujia more. For a mature person like Zheng Yujia, she wouldn't do anything stupid because of jealousy. Zheng Yujia didn't betray his trust. She didn't want to break the phonograph wooden carving. She found a switch and pressed it gently. There was no sound as expected. Zheng Yujia looked at it again and pulled out a very small plastic card from a slit under the disc record. Suddenly, a beautiful birthday song came out from the phonograph. It was Fong Bebe's voice. "This is to block the battery and prevent the battery from running out," Zheng Yujia explained. "It can even record. I didn't expect it." She listened to the different voice of a real star. Her expression was a little strange, but she didn't show it. "Bebe." Kiki heard Fong Bebe's voice and clapped happily. At this time, Poplar Fruit's cell phone suddenly rang. Poplar Fruit quickly took his cell phone from the desk next to him. He looked at the caller ID and couldn't help but smile. He looked up and smiled apologetically to the others in the room. "I'll take a call first." Zheng Yujia looked a little sad as Poplar Fruit walked out. She sighed softly in her heart. She had just noticed Poplar Fruit's expression. The call was from Fong Bebe. When Poplar Fruit picked up the call, he had just walked out of the door. Fong Bebe vaguely heard her own voice from the phone receiver. She smiled and asked, "Wow, I called just in time. Did you just open the gift?" Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "Yes, it just happened to be the turn of your music box. Kiki just said that she liked it very much. I'll thank you on her behalf. Of course, I went to many houses to find it. I spent a lot of effort." Fong Bebe wasn't modest at all and said proudly, "Thank you. You're too good to Kiki." Poplar Fruit said affectionately, "Where's Kiki?" Fong Bebe asked. "Give her the cell phone. I haven't said happy birthday to her yet." Poplar Fruit was a little embarrassed. At this time, he really couldn't take the cell phone in and directly let Fong Bebe talk to Kiki. He also didn't want to carry Kiki out alone. His family's opinion was secondary. He felt that would make it difficult for Zheng Yujia to step down. Fong Bebe keenly felt it. She smiled and said, "Kiki is having fun inside, right? Forget it. You can help me pass on the message." After talking with Fong Bebe for a while, Poplar Fruit put away the cell phone and returned to the room. At this time, the music box had finished playing a song. Zheng Yujia put the small card back and turned off the switch. Chi-Chi asked for it and played with it lovingly, but she just couldn't make it sing again no matter how hard she tried. "Let's open your gift." Poplar Fruit looked at Zheng Yujia with a little apologetic and said, Zheng Yujia wasn't the kind of person who fussed over every little thing and liked to be jealous. She didn't take this little emotion to heart. She smiled and said, "Okay, open it quickly. My ultimate gift is about to come on stage." Zheng Yujia's gift was a little too well-wrapped. Poplar Fruit looked for a long time before he found a way to open it. Like peeling an onion, he peeled off the outer packaging layer by layer. Then he opened the box. An aqua-blue electronic keyboard appeared on stage. It was indeed very beautiful. The exquisite baking process made the electronic keyboard as blue and smooth as crystal. There was a row of neat black and white keys on the long surface. Although Poplar Fruit didn't know how to appreciate it, when he pressed it gently, the soft touch and the sensitive elastic feedback told Poplar Fruit that this electronic keyboard was definitely expensive. Zheng Yujia ran up with a smile. She pressed a switch on the top and said, "This electronic keyboard is powered by a battery. You can charge it when it's out of power. Don't worry about getting electrocuted." A display on the top lit up, indicating that the electronic keyboard had started working. Zheng Yujia placed the electronic keyboard in front of Kiki. Kiki was immediately attracted by this beautiful thing. Zhang Yujia's fingers lightly brushed across the piano keys, and a string of melodious notes rang out, causing Chi-Chi to open her small mouth in surprise. Kiki, come and try. Zhang Yujia smiled and waved at Kiki. Chi-Chi used both her hands and feet to crawl over, and under Zhang Yujia's guidance, she started pressing randomly on the piano keys. Although Kiki randomly pressed the keys and didn't form a tune, Poplar Fruit looked at his daughter's happy expression and smiled happily. Kiki, do you like Annie's gift? Zhang Yujia asked with a smile. I like it. Kiki didn't raise her head as she answered in a childish voice. There was no need to ask which one she liked more. Zhang Yujia smiled with satisfaction. Kiki liked it. Poplar Fruit was happy. This was enough. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to... Chapter 319. Early in the morning, Poplar Fruit came back from practicing martial arts. Although it was a little cold outside, he was still sweating profusely. After drying his hair in a bathroom, Poplar Fruit returned to the guest room and gently woke up Kiki in the crib beside the bed. Papa! Chi-Chi was originally sleeping on her side, but her father had turned her belly up. She rubbed her eyes, which were a little hard to open, and asked in a daze, Is it my birthday? Poplar Fruit smiled helplessly. Ever since his precious daughter tasted the sweetness of her birthday a few days ago, she had been pestering him every day to ask if it was her birthday. He could only gently explain again, It's not your birthday today. You only celebrate your birthday once a year. Kiki was carried up by her father. Her little head leaned on her father's shoulder. She was still in a daze. Poplar Fruit sat on the bed and helped her put on her little clothes. He was ready to carry her out to wash her face and brush her teeth. Papa, Kiki wants cake. Kiki's whispered voice sounded in Poplar Fruit's ears. You can't eat so much cake. In a few days, when Papa returns to Yangcheng, I'll buy you a cake, okay? Poplar Fruit smiled and rubbed his daughter's little head. Her hair was soft and smooth, but it seemed to have grown a little. When he returned to Yangcheng, he had to trim her bangs. After washing his face, Poplar Fruit ate the breakfast that his mother, Su Jinfeng, made for him. He left a portion in the pot for Zhang Yujia and then said to his mother, Mom, I'm going to the city later. When Yujia wakes up, let her eat breakfast. You're not bringing her with you? Su Jinfeng asked puzzledly. No. Poplar Fruit hesitated for a moment and shook his head. To change his clothes, Poplar Fruit could only go back to his room. He opened the wardrobe and looked through the clothes that he brought back. He found that they were all very casual clothes. That's right. Everyone came back to their hometown for a vacation. Who would specially bring a suit home? After searching for a long time, Poplar Fruit finally found a slightly wrinkled white shirt and black casual pants that were barely wearable. Kiki had a lot of nice clothes. Poplar Fruit found a purple lace skirt for her. Kiki sat at the side, looked at it, and giggled. Don't. Before Poplar Fruit could tell his daughter not to disturb Zhang Yujia's sleep, Zhang Yujia woke up in a daze. Poplar Fruit? She pushed herself up from the bed, and the blanket fell off. Fortunately, she was not very casual here. She was still wearing a set of pajamas, but the buttons at the collar were not buttoned, revealing her snow-white cleavage. She rubbed her eyes and looked at the clothes in Poplar Fruit's hands. She asked curiously, Where are you going? Poplar Fruit felt like he was caught sneaking around. He scratched his head embarrassedly and said, I'm going to the city. It's okay. I'll be back later in the afternoon. You can continue sleeping. However, when Poplar Fruit said that he was going to the city, Zhang Yujia woke up. She was tired of staying in the village for the past few days. In the beginning, she could use Poplar Fruit's computer to watch movies and surf the net. Later, she felt bored and even threw the computer back to Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit could see that. He had wanted to go back to Yangcheng for a long time, but he still had something to do. In order to make up for it, Poplar Fruit racked his brains to bring Zhang Yujia to all the places around his hometown. He even found a fishing boat to bring Zhang Yujia out to sea. However, it was a small county, a small village. There wasn't even any rural tourism, so how could there be so many fun places? Poplar Fruit hesitated. After a while, he said, You don't have to come with me. I'll be back soon. Let's go, Zhang Yujia said excitedly. It's fine. It's just a short drive. Poplar Fruit helplessly said, I really can't today. It's not convenient. Zhang Yujia suspiciously looked at Poplar Fruit and asked, Why is it not convenient? You're even looking for clothes and trying to sneak away. Are you going to see your lover? Poplar Fruit looked at her and rolled his eyes. What lover? Don't guess blindly. I'm going to attend a classmate's wedding. Wedding is great. I'll go too. Zhang Yujia happily said. A what? Zhang Yujia pushed Poplar Fruit and said, Why can't I go with my classmate's wedding? If you're afraid that others will misunderstand our relationship, then we can just say that we're friends. What's more, I'm not going there to freeload. I'll pay for my share myself. Poplar Fruit helplessly looked at her, sighed, and said, Well, I'll tell you the truth. The one getting married is my ex-girlfriend. It's not convenient for you to go with me. You have an ex-girlfriend? Zhang Yujia asked in surprise. This was the first time she knew about this. Poplar Fruit gently nodded. So it's like this. Zhang Yujia rolled her eyes and said, How about this? I'll go with you, but I won't go in. Is that okay? I'll go shopping by myself. Poplar Fruit hesitated. Hey, is that okay? Zhang Yujia pushed Poplar Fruit and said unhappily, I've already taken a step back, and you're letting me go with you? I want to go shopping so much that I'm going crazy. Zhang Yujia grabbed her hair. She was a little scattered early in the morning, and now she looked like a chicken coop. Poplar Fruit saw how pitiful she was, so he could only nod. However, he still had to set some rules for her. You can go, but you have to listen to my arrangements. You can't attend a wedding, and you can't run around. You can just walk around nearby. It won't take long for me to have a banquet. Zhang Yujia, of course, happily nodded. Let's go first. As for whether she would comply or not, Zhang Yujia laughed in her heart. That depends on my mood. Afraid that Poplar Fruit would leave her behind, Zhang Yujia's movements were very fast. Poplar Fruit had just finished changing his clothes, helped Kiki put on a small skirt, combed her hair, and braided her hair. Zhang Yujia had already washed up and changed her clothes. Let's go, let's go. Zhang Yujia wore a neat black outfit. On the top was a black tights, showing off her perfect slender waist and ample breasts. On the bottom was a pair of denim shorts and black stockings. She didn't need to wear high heels, but her slender still made people drool. You don't want to eat breakfast? Poplar Fruit asked. No, I'm not hungry. Zhang Yujia walked in front with a black classic LV leather bag and said excitedly. It took an hour to go from the village to the county and another hour and a half to go from the county to the city. In the car, Zhang Yujia was bored and gossiped about Poplar Fruit's relationship history. Poplar Fruit felt that there was nothing to hide, and the dusty past was slowly peeled off by her. So, you guys were still very good in the past. Zhang Yujia listened to Poplar Fruit's sweet past and asked curiously, Then why did you guys break up? This was a good question. Poplar Fruit hesitated for a moment, looked at Kiki in Zhang Yujia's arms, and said bluntly, Because of her. Chapter 320. Yulong Hotel's magnificent entrance was bustling with people coming and going. From time to time, a few loud congratulations could be heard. With Kiki in his arms, Poplar Fruit bypassed the geomantic fountain in the middle and walked towards the entrance. There were 2 signs at the entrance and 2 tables facing each other. This meant that there were 2 families holding a wedding today. If the guests didn't recognize the relatives of the newlyweds at the entrance, they would have to look at the signs. Otherwise, they would have to walk around. Poplar Fruit was the one who didn't recognize anyone. He arrived a little late and didn't see anyone he knew, so he had to glance at the 2 signs. Perhaps it was luck, but Poplar Fruit saw Lu Yunran's name at first glance. His gaze shifted to the left, and he saw the groom's name, Lin Tianxi. It said, Lin Tianxi and Lu Yunran's wedding. Poplar Fruit looked at the sign, and his eyes became dazed. It was as if he had walked into a tunnel of time. Everything around him seemed to slow down and become colorful. She got married after all. Poplar Fruit sighed softly in his heart. It was just that the name written next to her name wasn't his. Thinking back to the solemn vows they had made in the past, it was a little funny. There was no right or wrong. The entanglement between him and Lu Yunran was messy enough. Forget it. She had found her own happiness. That was enough. Coming back to his senses, Poplar Fruit shook his head and laughed at himself. Then he recovered his calmness and walked to the table next to him. Two people were writing. Poplar Fruit walked towards the bride's side of the register. An old man, wearing glasses, was recording the wedding guests' gifts. The old man was in high spirits. His handwriting was also flamboyant and very beautiful. Poplar Fruit, 1,800 yuan. Poplar Fruit took out a stack of money that he had prepared beforehand and handed it over. Wow! Low exclamations formed around them. This exclamation wasn't unreasonable because the female guests didn't have a big family background. The guests who came to attend the wedding only received 200 to 300 yuan per person. Even if they were close relatives, they would receive at most 1,000 yuan. Poplar Fruit's 1,800 yuan really made him stand out from the crowd. I didn't go the wrong way. The old man raised his eyes and looked at Poplar Fruit, who looked a little too young but was carrying a child. He pointed to the side with his pen and said, "That's where the man is." "That's right." Poplar Fruit smiled. "Good. Is it that fruit?" The old man lowered his eyelids and asked in a loud voice, "The fruit of karma." Poplar Fruit softly said before turning around to go inside. Lu Yunran's wedding was on the first floor, while the other couple's wedding was on the second floor. The first floor was naturally more spacious and grand than the second floor. Other things aside, the space in the middle of the second floor was hollowed out, and the first floor became a big stage. Walking in, Poplar Fruit looked for a place to sit while looking up at the main table on the stage. She was up there. Poplar Fruit could feel it. After looking around, he finally saw the woman in the red Cheongsam wedding dress. Although her hair was tied up in a high bun, and her face was covered in thick powder and red lip gloss, Poplar Fruit still recognized her at a glance. She looked a lot different from before. Poplar Fruit stood silently in the same place, staring blankly at Lu Yunran, the woman he once dreamed of, who was dozens of meters away. As if she sensed something, Lu Yunran was talking to someone else when she suddenly turned to look in Poplar Fruit's direction. Separated by a few tables and a lot of people, her eyes also fell on Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit's change was actually the biggest. Not only did he grow taller, but he also became very handsome. However, she couldn't recognize him at such a distance. Lu Yunran could only see that the man was Poplar Fruit, who was like a needle pricking her heart every time she thought of him. He was her first love. The distance of dozens of meters was like thousands of mountains and rivers. Even if the two of them looked at each other with infatuation, it was impossible for them to walk to each other's side again. Poplar Fruit. A male voice suddenly sounded from the side, making Poplar Fruit come back to his senses. "Jiangbo." Poplar Fruit looked back and saw a small boy. However, he recognized him immediately and said in surprise, "It's really you." Jiangbo wiped the water off his hands. He had just come back from the toilet. He gestured the height difference between himself and Poplar Fruit and said gloomily, "I haven't seen you for a few years. How did you grow so tall?" Poplar Fruit didn't answer his question. Instead, he asked in surprise, "Why did you come back?" "I came back to attend my old classmate's wedding." "No, I should be the one asking you this, right?" Jiangbo pulled Poplar Fruit's arm, took him to the side, and asked, "Why did you come back? You can run back from Harbor City. Why can't I come back?" Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. "Damn, are you playing dumb with me?" Jiangbo patted Poplar Fruit's arm and pretended to be angry. Lu Yunran's wedding. "Seriously, why did you come back?" Jiangbo was one of Poplar Fruit's best friends in high school. However, he went to Harbor City University to study in college. After graduation, he stayed in Harbor City to work. He suddenly became short, rich, and handsome. Jiangbo was in Harbor City, and they only contacted each other occasionally. However, when Poplar Fruit took Lu Yunran to Harbor City to play in college, they stayed in this guy's rented house. Jiangbo asked in a low voice, "Don't tell me that you're planning a melodramatic wedding robbery." Poplar Fruit looked at him speechlessly and then said seriously, "No, it's impossible between us. She invited me to her wedding, so I came to give her my blessings." "No way. Jiangbo looked at him strangely and asked, "Can you really be friends after breaking up?" "I can't be friends." Poplar Fruit shook his head and said, "But there's no need to be enemies. Is it interesting to not contact each other until death?" "Well, as long as you're honest with yourself." Jiangbo turned his attention to Kiki and asked with a smile, "This little girl is our little princess Kiki, right?" Kiki's photo had been posted in their class group a long time ago. The classmates in the class all knew that Poplar Fruit had a daughter. Jiangbo even asked Poplar Fruit about it on the phone, so they didn't make a fuss. "Yes." Poplar Fruit smiled and touched Kiki's head. He said to Kiki, "Kiki, call Uncle Jiangbo Uncle." Kiki said obediently. "Tut tut, what a smart child." Jiangbo smiled and said, "It's just that this uncle makes me sound old. You have to call me brother in the future. It's not scientific to be an uncle in your early 20s. "Okay, don't be silly." Poplar Fruit smiled and pulled Jiangbo's shoulder. He smiled and said, "You sit there. Help me find a seat." "There's a seat, there's a seat." Jiangbo smiled and led Poplar Fruit forward. He said, "Everyone in our class is sitting at that table." There's no mistake in the title of the chapter. This is it. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 321. Poplar Fruit did not notice that the man standing next to Lu Yunran was a little chubby. As for his height, he was probably around 7 meters, and he was wearing high-top leather shoes. This man named Lin Tianxi was very sensitive to Lu Yunran's absent-mindedness when talking to him. He followed Lu Yunran's gaze and caught a glimpse of Poplar Fruit's figure. This made Lin Tianxi feel very uncomfortable. He had long heard that Lu Yunran had an ex-boyfriend. After dating Lu Yunran for half a year, he could clearly sense that Lu Yunran still could not forget him. Here, he had mentioned how Lu Yunran and Lin Tianxi had met. Lin Tianxi was from a family of officials. Some of the elders in his family held important positions in the municipal committee, and he had also climbed his way to the position of section chief in the local tax bureau. This made him, who was only in his early 30s, high-spirited and vigorous, and gave him the feeling of a young talent. However, despite his success in the government, Lin Tianxi was still unmarried because he was chubby and looked a little too ordinary. Of course, it was not that no one liked him, but he also had the heart of a toad lusting after a swan's flesh. His standards for a partner were slightly higher. His family urged him every day, and Lin Tianxi was also very anxious. Once, on his way home after work, he happened to bump into Lu Yunran and Lei Xingliang, who were standing at the intersection and exchanging pleasantries. Lei Xingliang was Lu Yunran and Poplar Fruit's high school classmate. He had a small tax business of his own and had some private dealings with Lin Tianxi. When Lin Tianxi saw Lu Yunran, he was stunned. Since Lei Xingliang happened to be in the middle, he later pestered Lei Xingliang to introduce Lu Yunran to him. Lei Xingliang saw that there was a chance to close the gap between him and the god of fortune, and his heart bloomed with joy. He immediately patted his chest and promised Lin Tianxi. Afterward, he spared no effort to matchmake Lin Tianxi and Lu Yunran. His breakthrough point was Lu Yunran's parents. After Lu Yunran's parents found out about Lin Tianxi's family background and status, they were especially satisfied and fanned the flames by Lu Yunran's ears. At that time, Lu Yunran had just returned home from the Buddha city. Her heart was in a mess. Poplar Fruit had indeed hurt her and even cut off their future. However, the past 4 years were a mess that could not be easily cut off with a knife. She could not sort it out, and it was even more confusing. At this moment, Lin Tianxi took advantage of the situation. Speaking of Lin Tianxi, other than being a little plump and ordinary, he was not bad in other aspects. He easily helped Lu Yunran solve her job problem, an idle job at news agency. He was also humorous and witty. He had many more years of experience than Poplar Fruit and knew how to read people's expressions. Such mature charm was something that a woman like Lu Yunran, who longed for marriage, could not resist. In addition to the incitement and encouragement of the two families, Lu Yunran finally accepted Lin Tianxi's pursuit. The two of them were together for less than half a year before they got engaged, and got married today. A new love was the best way to heal a broken relationship. However, it had to be love first. Lu Yunran had never felt that there was love between her and Lin Tianxi. As time passed, this feeling became clearer and clearer. However, she had already sacrificed so much for Lin Tianxi that she could no longer extricate herself. Moreover, Lu Yunran did not want to extricate herself. Although love was dead, wasn't everything in front of her what she wanted? Lu Yunran had always told herself that she was about to get married. After marriage, she had to learn to love this man who would be with her for the rest of her life. That being said, how could the unforgettable memory of first love be let go so easily? Lu Yunran and Lin Tianxi's relationship was that Lin Tianxi was as passionate as fire, while Lu Yunran was as plain as tea. Her fragrance was tempting, but it was as tasteless as drinking a cup of plain water. It was even a little bitter. After all, Lin Tianxi was an official. He hid his displeasure very well and did not let Lu Yunran see his negative side. However, today, when he saw Lu Yunran's expression and thought of how she had always looked at the door with anticipation, he understood in his heart. That tall and handsome man was definitely her ex. How could Lu Yunran do this? How could she call her ex over at her own wedding? Lin Tianxi glanced again at the man who was really tall. He was several heads taller than himself. Lin Tianxi, who was feeling a little inferior, felt a fiery rage rising in his head. This was just the fuse that ignited the resentment that had been accumulated for a long time. Worry? Jealousy? Resentment? Lin Tianxi could no longer make sense of it. He was now like a male lion who had discovered a new member of the same sex in his territory. He gritted his teeth and swore in his heart that he would definitely expel him. Lin Tianxi watched as Poplar Fruit sat at the table where Lei Xingliang was, and a sly smile appeared on his face. However, this expression disappeared in a flash. Before Lu Yunran noticed, he had already resumed his normal smile. As if nothing had happened, he pulled Lu Yunran to greet the other relatives in his family, both close and distant. They followed Jiang Bo to the table where their high school classmates were sitting. Poplar Fruit's appearance immediately caused a commotion. Everyone exclaimed in surprise. During their 4 years in university, Poplar Fruit and Lu Yunran could be said to have always appeared as a pair at class reunions. Everyone knew that Poplar Fruit and Lu Yunran used to be a couple. Now that Lu Yunran was getting married to someone else, how could they not be surprised when Poplar Fruit showed up? However, everyone had a tacit understanding and did not ask Poplar Fruit why he could let go of his past and attend the wedding like Jiangbo did. After the initial shock, everyone coincidentally changed the topic to Kiki, who was in Poplar Fruit's arms. They purposely ignored the past between Poplar Fruit and Lu Yunran. Everyone was an adult, and they were not as close as Jiangbo and Poplar Fruit. It was best not to ask and pretend that nothing had happened. Everyone would not feel awkward sitting together. Poplar Fruit found that there were not many classmates at Lu Yunran's wedding. There were less than 10 people, so the seats were very spacious. After Poplar Fruit sat down, there were still seats next to him. It was normal. After everyone graduated, they went to work or further their studies all over the country. Very few of them returned to their hometown. Even if it was the May Day holiday, everyone tried to travel according to their own plans. Only 2 girls who were especially close to Lu Yunran rushed back. As for Jiangbo, he happened to be on leave this week. There was only 1 day off on the May Day holiday in Harbor City to visit his family, so he came along. Everyone was particularly interested in the innocent Kiki. They kept asking Poplar Fruit about Kiki. Poplar Fruit was also happy to share interesting stories about Kiki with everyone. Of course, not everyone was listening with great interest. Lei Xingliang's smile was a little fake. After he saw Poplar Fruit, he was a little restless. Just when everyone was laughing because of Kiki's cute childish words, Lei Xingliang found a chance and quietly left the seat. There will be a good show tomorrow. Please look forward to it, hee hee. It's a new month. Looking for recommendations and monthly votes. Everyone, don't be stingy with your votes. Chapter 322. The hotel started serving the dishes one after another. However, the wedding had not officially started yet, so the people below the stage were not reserved. Once the dishes were served, they started eating. This was also a characteristic of the wedding banquets in Poplar Fruit's hometown. Most people received the invitation and came to pool their money for a meal. The people on the stage were having a lively wedding, and the people below the stage were also having a lively meal. If outsiders saw this, they might think that there were two groups of people on the stage and below the stage. Poplar Fruit's table also started eating. "Kiki, what do you want to eat?" a female classmate asked with a smile. "Annie will get some for you, okay?" "Kiki wants to eat cake," Kiki replied crisply. But where was the cake on the stage? Poplar Fruit smiled and said to the female classmate, "Tandy, I'll get some for her. She doesn't know what to eat yet." Poplar Fruit looked at the dishes on the table. The chicken was too tough, so Kiki probably couldn't chew it. Eating some fish would be good. Poplar Fruit reached out and used his chopsticks to pick up a small piece of fish and put it in his bowl. Kiki also stretched out her neck and watched her father pick out the fish bones in the fish. When her father's chopsticks came over, she couldn't wait any longer. She opened her mouth and sucked on the chopsticks. "Kiki, you have to chew a bit before you can eat." Poplar Fruit pulled the chopsticks out and smiled. Poplar Fruit was feeding his daughter something to eat. At this time, the groom, who had come back from outside to welcome the guests, happened to pass by the table with the white-faced and red-lipped bride. They happened to see Lei Xingliang sitting at the table. "Little Lei, haha." Lin Tianxi let go of Lu Yunran's hand and walked over. He patted Lei Xingliang's shoulder and laughed. "Why are you sitting here? Come with me to the main table. You're my matchmaker with little Lu." Hearing Lin Tianxi's words, Poplar Fruit took a deep look at Lei Xingliang, who looked like a boss with his permed hair. He could feel Lu Yunran's burning gaze from behind the groom. After a moment of hesitation, Poplar Fruit glanced at Lu Yunran. Their eyes met for a brief moment before he nodded slightly and lowered his head to look at the wine glass in front of him. No, Big Brother Lin, I still have a large group of classmates to take care of." Lei Xingliang also laughed. "Oh, right. Little Lei, this group of people are your and little Lu's high school classmates, right?" Lin Tianxi, who was about to leave, suddenly turned back and asked with a smile, "Why don't you introduce her to me? Little Lu is quite shy and refuses to introduce me to your classmates." Okay. Lei Xingliang readily agreed. However, he wanted to introduce Lin Tianxi to everyone. "Everyone, we all know that Yunran's groom is called Lin Tianxi. Here, the groom is standing in front of everyone today. Let me introduce everyone to each other. First, I would like to introduce Lin Tianxi, Section Chief Lin." No, he's just a small section chief," Lin Tianxi said modestly with a slightly proud tone. "That's not small," Lei Xingliang said exaggeratedly. "Big Brother Lin is from the local taxation bureau. He has a lot of power and is already a section chief at such a young age. He has a bright future ahead of him." Then, Lei Xingliang started to introduce them one by one. Even though he did not raise his head, Poplar Fruit had a very strange feeling. That was, even though Lin Tianxi was listening to Lei Xingliang's introduction, his gaze was still faintly on him. Poplar Fruit now trusted his sixth sense very much. So, he lowered his head to take care of his daughter, and his eyebrows slightly furrowed. "This is Triple X, Yunran's best friend in high school. Now, she works at Triple X." Lei Xingliang introduced them one by one. Every time, Lin Tianxi would hold the person who was introduced with both hands and thank her for taking care of Lu Yunran in high school. Everyone who had their hands held by him would feel flattered. It was quite hypocritical. Poplar Fruit was a little disdainful, but he did not show it. Jiang Bo, who was in front of Poplar Fruit, was a little more courageous. He calmly shook Lin Tianxi's hand and calmly replied, "It's a small matter. It's not worth mentioning." When it was Poplar Fruit's turn, he stood up with his daughter in his arms and looked calmly at Lei Xingliang, waiting to see how he would introduce himself. "Big Brother Lin, this is Poplar Fruit. He's also Yunran's friend." Lei Xingliang emphasized the word friend. It sounded a little weird. "I've heard of your name." Lin Tianxi stood in front of Poplar Fruit and laughed as he held Poplar Fruit's empty right arm. Little Lu used to talk about you often. Lu Yunran looked at Lin Tianxi with surprise. She knew that in front of Lin Tianxi, she had never mentioned the two words poplar fruit. She was even tight-lipped when talking about her relationship. However, Lu Yunran was silent. She understood that Lin Tianxi must have heard about poplar fruit from Lei Xingliang. Oh, is that so? Poplar Fruit calmly replied with the same fake smile on his face. No matter what happened in the past, Lin Tianxi was like a big leader. His left hand held Poplar Fruit's right hand, and his right hand gently patted the back of Poplar Fruit's right hand. He said sincerely, I have to thank you for taking care of little Lu for me in the past. When little Lu just graduated, I know it was tough. You didn't have much money either. But don't worry. Little Lu will definitely lead a good life if she follows me in the future. In the future, I will definitely make little Lu the happiest woman in the world. Lin Tianxi's voice and tone were very sincere, but every word was very grating in Poplar Fruit's ears. What did he mean by it was tough in the past? What did he mean by not much money? What did he mean by following him in the future would lead a good life? Every word he said was either belittling others or elevating himself. Poplar Fruit admitted that Xiao Ran's work in Buddha City was indeed a little tiring, and his career had just started. However, he earned a monthly salary of 10,000 a year after graduation. Was that considered not much money? Lei Xingliang smiled and agreed. Big brother Lin, you're being humble again. There's no need to talk about the future. Little Lu is already the happiest woman in the world now. Let me tell you, Big brother Lin not only has a bright future, but his family's condition is also one of the best. Now, they just bought a new wedding house in Golden Gue Huiding, and it's the best house with a sea view in the third phase. He already knew what Lin Tianxi meant, and when he saw that Lin Tianxi and Poplar Fruit were not on good terms, he didn't care about their friendship as classmates and added insult to injury. Golden Gue Huiding was the most famous luxury residential area in the city. Hearing this name, many girls exclaimed softly. Lu Yunran's best friend even held Lu Yunran's hand and smiled. Xiaoran, you're so lucky to be with Section Chief Lin. Tomorrow's chapter will definitely be what you're looking forward to. Xiaohan promises. Chapter 323. Poplar Fruit looked at everything in front of him, as if he was watching this farce from the outside. He turned to look at Lu Yunran, his face indifferent, and said without joy or worry, This is good. Xiaoran, congratulations. Lu Yunran listened to everyone's praises and congratulations, and said a few words of hypocrisy. When she heard Poplar Fruit's words, she was stunned. If it wasn't for the thick layer of foundation, she would have looked even paler. She looked at Poplar Fruit with a trace of bitterness that was difficult to erase. However, Poplar Fruit didn't continue to look at her, but turned to Lin Tianxi, who was still holding his right hand, and said with a smile, Division Chief Lin, you don't have to be so polite. Xiao Ran will be happy with you. That's enough. After that, Poplar Fruit quietly pulled his right hand away, then sat down and thought to himself, Now that I've said it, it's time for you to leave, right? However, Lin Tianxi didn't want to let Poplar Fruit go just like that. He put his hand on Poplar Fruit's shoulder, looked at Lei Xingliang, and said with some blame, Little Lei, you introduced everyone in detail, but you introduced little Yang so carelessly. Can't you just give a name? After Poplar Fruit sat down, Lin Tianxi finally didn't have to look up at Poplar Fruit. He put his hand on Poplar Fruit's shoulder, as if he was superior. Poplar Fruit frowned and looked at his hand, but didn't say anything. Little Yang, where are you working now? Lin Tianxi made a concerned expression and asked with a smile, Are you working in a foreign company or a state-owned enterprise? Poplar Fruit raised his eyebrows, then smiled faintly and said, I don't have a fixed job at the moment, so I'm self-employed. As they were talking, a woman wearing sunglasses walked up to the railing on the second floor because the wedding banquet hadn't started yet. Her height of 1.7 meters made her stand out in this small southern city. This was Zheng Yujia. She promised Poplar Fruit that she wouldn't come in, but not long after Poplar Fruit went in, She left her car at the parking lot in front of the hotel. Because it was a luxury car like the Land Rover, the valet took a few hundred yuan tip from Zheng Yujia without saying anything. Zheng Yujia sneaked in. She didn't dare to run to Poplar Fruit directly. If Poplar Fruit was angry because of this, it wouldn't be easy. She saw that there weren't many people upstairs, so she sneaked upstairs and looked around the railing in the middle, looking for Poplar Fruit. After a long time, she finally found him. Zheng Yujia saw a man in a groom's outfit standing next to Poplar Fruit and chattering about something. She frowned, then went above Poplar Fruit and secretly eavesdropped. Self-employed, Lin Tianxi's facial muscles twitched, as if he was trying to hold back his laughter. He then said, "Moving bricks is considered a self-employed job, right?" Lin Tianxi made a somewhat embarrassed expression and said with a smile, I'm sorry. I'm a straightforward person. This isn't directed at you." Poplar Fruit waved his hand, indicating that it was fine. But Lin Tianxi continued, "But little Yang, I don't want to criticize you, but look at what you're wearing. It's easy for people to mistake you for a migrant worker." Huh. Poplar Fruit looked at the wrinkled white shirt he was wearing. No, it should be called a gray shirt. Because Kiki's soles were covered in mud, Poplar Fruit didn't pay attention and was rubbed by Kiki's feet. As a result, it was black and white, and the more she rubbed it, the darker it became. It really did look like silk. Lin Tianxi's expression changed. He went from laughing loudly to holding back his laughter and said with an apologetic tone, "I'm sorry, I just couldn't help but laugh when I thought of a graduate from a famous university moving bricks, ha." Upstairs, Zheng Yujia heard Lin Tianxi's words, and her face darkened. She suddenly flipped out. She looked left and right, and almost couldn't help but throw a stool down to smash this damn fatty to death. In the end, she looked down again and memorized Poplar Fruit's position. Then, she carried her bag and strode up the stairs. Lin Tianxi's continuous criticism made Poplar Fruit's chest burn with anger, but he took a deep breath and calmed himself down. He kept telling himself not to get angry and ruin Lu Yunran's wedding. This was a sacred moment she had been looking forward to for more than 20 years. In the end, Poplar Fruit only said calmly, "Mr. Lin, you're joking." He just wanted to keep the peace and not make a big deal out of a small matter. Did I hit the nail on the head? Lin Tianxi pretended to be surprised. Poplar Fruit didn't have time to explain before Lin Tianxi continued. "Little Yang, don't worry, I definitely didn't mean to look down on you, and I wouldn't dare to look down on the migrant worker brothers. Didn't the central government say that the migrant worker brothers are an important part of our country's urbanization process that can't be ignored? Little Yang, don't feel inferior. Being a migrant worker is quite honorable." Lin Tianxi's words became more and more unpleasant. Lu Yunran walked over with a sad and apologetic expression. She hugged his arm and dragged him toward the main table in the center. Choking with sobs, she said, "Tianxi, don't say any more, okay?" Poplar Fruit looked at Lu Yunran's actions and pleading with a complicated expression. He sighed again in his heart. However, the more Lu Yunran acted like this, the more Lin Tianxi felt that Lu Yunran still had feelings for her old lover and that she was still desperately protecting Poplar Fruit. Lin Tianxi's heart was filled with jealousy, and he swung his arm forcefully. Lin Tianxi was short and fat, but his thick and strong arms were quite strong. Lu Yunran, who was a little thin and weak, was violently flung away by him. She staggered back a few steps. Fortunately, there was a girl behind her who quickly caught her, or else she would have fallen to the ground. Poplar Fruit saw how rough Lin Tianxi was treating Lu Yunran, and his eyes widened. Fortunately, nothing happened to Lu Yunran. He loosened his clenched fists, but he still felt very uncomfortable. Lin Tianxi also felt that he had lost his composure. He quickly went up to help Lu Yunran up, and then pretended to apologize. However, he still wasn't satisfied. He turned his head and continued to speak to Poplar Fruit. He pretended to be sincere and said, "Little Yang, I didn't want to say too much, but I remembered that you already have a child." Lin Tianxi pointed at Kiki. Poplar Fruit's eyebrows twitched. He knew that Lin Tianxi definitely didn't have anything good to say. Sure enough, Lin Tianxi continued, although you have a very hard job and you work very hard, the salary is very little. I heard that you are still in Yangcheng. How can that little bit of money be enough? Don't talk about supporting your child. I think it's hard enough to even support yourself. Poplar Fruit really wanted to punch Lin Tianxi in the face and smash his big mouth. This motherfucker was really annoying. Next chapter, the meat show you want is here. But you have to wait until tomorrow. You won't hit me, right? Ha. Chapter 324. After the annoying fly dragged, Lu Yun ran away. Poplar Fruit suddenly felt that the world was peaceful. Lin Tianxi felt that there was no need for him to stay here any longer. He also felt particularly aggrieved in front of Poplar Fruit. So even when the newlyweds were toasting each other, he didn't look straight at Poplar Fruit. It was peaceful. Poplar Fruit looked at Lu Yunran's back and felt a little lost. They used to be so lovey-dovey, but now they had separated. She had married someone else, and he had gone further and further in his new life. He was afraid that they would never see each other again. Xiaohan can promise here that Lu Yunran's scenes basically ended here. This book is not a melodramatic drama, so there won't be a melodramatic plot of an ex-girlfriend getting back together with her ex-boyfriend after a relationship change. Poplar Fruit retracted his gaze and looked at Zheng Yujie, who gave him a headache just thinking about it. Why are you here? Poplar Fruit opened his mouth, but he didn't ask the question in the end. There was no need to ask this question. He shook his head, pulled out the empty seat beside him, and said helplessly, "You sit here." Zheng Yujie had just recovered from the kiss with Poplar Fruit. She, who was always carefree, was actually a little shy. She bit her lower lip, looked up at Poplar Fruit, and sat down very meekly. The other students didn't say anything, but Jiang Bo, who was sitting on Poplar Fruit's left, was a little excited. He punched Poplar Fruit, winked, and said, "Poplar Fruit, this girl isn't from Guangdong, right?" "Hello, I'm from Beijing." After sitting down, Zheng Yujie finally recovered. She generously extended her right hand to Jiang Bo and smiled. "Hello, I'm Poplar Fruit's best friend. I'm now working in Hong Kong." Jiang Bo was a little flattered and said, "Hong Kong, will we be discriminated against?" Zheng Yujie asked curiously. Over the years, she had seen a lot of news on the news about Harbor City people rejecting mainland tourists. "It's okay." Jiang Bo scratched his head and said, "There is indeed such a phenomenon, but because I can speak Cantonese, I haven't encountered such a situation. Actually, this is a phenomenon of psychological imbalance." Poplar Fruit said with a smile, "On the one hand, the mainland is the main source of income for Hong Kong. Don't be fooled by them. In fact, they have taken a lot of money from us. On the other hand, they are worried that China's economy will overtake them. Isn't China's GDP rising rapidly? They're worried that they'll lose this sense of superiority, so they want to show their difference in other ways." "Papa." Kiki couldn't help it at this time. She looked at the table full of delicacies. She could only smell the fragrance, but couldn't eat. After sitting down, she kept pulling Poplar Fruit's arm and whispered, "Kiki wants to eat." Interrupted by Kiki, Poplar Fruit had to first pick up some fish for her to eat. This kind of sea fish was steamed, and the meat was fresh and tender. Although it didn't melt in the mouth, the soft taste was really appetizing. When Poplar Fruit picked up some fish for his daughter, he couldn't help but put a few pieces of fish into his mouth. At this time, Kiki would be very anxious. She protested and pulled her father's right hand, trying to pull her father's chopsticks down like a mantis trying to stop a car. The most delicious thing at the banquet was the stewed mutton that had just been served. The mutton was cut into pieces and stewed until it was tender. The dark brown gravy lingered on it, revealing an attractive gloss. When the lid of the casserole was opened, the mutton was still steaming hot. Fennel, star anise, and other spices were stewed together, and the strong smell of the mutton overflowed the whole table. Good food should be eaten while it was hot, especially mutton. If it was cold, the taste would be reduced. Therefore, when the mutton was just served, everyone quickly picked it up and ate it. They were even stingy with talking. Poplar Fruit picked up a piece of mutton and put it in his mouth. As soon as the mutton touched his tongue, the strong smell of mutton exploded on his taste buds. What a pleasure! If he ate it in the winter, even the gods would be envious. The delicate taste of the mutton was reflected in the process of chewing. Poplar Fruit even wanted to close his eyes and taste it carefully. The little foodie Kiki smelled the fragrance of the mutton and saw her father's intoxicated look when eating the mutton. She couldn't sit still and quickly grabbed her father's right hand that was holding the chopsticks. She shook it and hummed in protest. "You want to eat too?" Poplar Fruit opened his eyes and asked with a smile. What he was thinking about now was not whether Kiki could eat the mutton or not. Remember when he went to Beijing in October last year? Poplar Fruit and Blizzard's Allen had eaten mutton tripe at a famous tripe restaurant in Beijing. Kiki wanted to eat it at that time. In the end, Poplar Fruit let her taste a little bit of the tripe soup. Kiki couldn't stand the smell of mutton and spat out the soup. In. Kiki nodded seriously. Mutton isn't easy for Kiki to digest, right? Zheng Yujie asked from the side. Poplar Fruit thought for a moment and said to Zheng Yujie, "This shouldn't be a problem. It's been stewing for a few hours, and the meat has been stewed. The mutton was cooked quite soft, and Kiki should be able to eat it." So, he reached out with his chopsticks and picked up a small piece of mutton. Using the spoon and chopsticks, he tore it apart to ensure that Kiki could eat it easily. "Try a little bit first." Poplar Fruit picked up a small piece and put it in Kiki's mouth to see her reaction. Kiki opened her small mouth full of hope and ate the mutton. After chewing twice, she felt that something was wrong and her small face suddenly wrinkled. Poplar Fruit saw his daughter's mouth twitch and quickly reached out his hand. Sure enough, Kiki spat out the mutton into her father's hand and revealed a look of disgust. Even though it was already covered with fennel, star anise, and other spices, the mutton smell was still very strong in the meat. From the looks of it, Kiki was very disgusted with the mutton smell. Poplar Fruit laughed. He explained to Zheng Yujie what happened last year, and he knew that Kiki didn't like mutton. Mutton is so delicious. It's a pity that you don't like it." Zheng Yujie laughed and teased Kiki. However, Kiki's appetite might have been ruined by the mutton smell, so she didn't pester her father to give her more food. Even though it was a wedding banquet, at Poplar Fruit's table, it could be considered half a gathering among high school classmates. Poplar Fruit and the others ate and talked about the past, sighing a little. Of course, there was no lack of alcohol in the gathering. A muddled was put aside, and everyone persuaded each other to drink beer. Poplar Fruit didn't drink, but Zheng Yujie generously accepted all of it. Looking at this somewhat familiar scene, Poplar Fruit absent-mindedly returned to the time when he and Zheng Yujie had just met. Wasn't it Zheng Yujie who stopped those guys from the Guangdong University of Technology's basketball team from persuading Poplar Fruit to drink? Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 325. Fortunately, it was a wedding banquet, so everyone restrained themselves from drinking. Zheng Yujie only drank a few glasses of beer, so this insignificant amount was like drinking nothing to her. When she left, her expression was still the same as usual. After the banquet, Poplar Fruit did not plan to say goodbye to Liu Yunran. He saw Liu Yunran's flushed face on the central stage, so he knew that there was no need for that. It was better to come quietly and leave quietly. His heart was already calm. In fact, their table had just been discussing the upcoming activities, and Jiangbo had suggested that everyone go to karaoke. It was rare for them to get together. Lei Xingliang drank 2 glasses, patted his chest, and said that he would pay the bill. Poplar Fruit still declined the invitation. He did not want to stay here any longer, especially when Lei Xingliang was paying the bill. When Poplar Fruit and Zheng Yujie were about to reach the gate, Poplar Fruit handed Kiki to Zheng Yujie, took his car keys, and asked with a smile, "Where did you park the car?" "Right at the gate." Zheng Yujie shrugged, blinked, and said, "It's a little illegal. Our car took up 2 of their parking spaces, but no one said anything." Just as the saying went, enemies would not meet. After exiting the gate, Poplar Fruit frowned slightly. He saw the man named Lin Tianxi. This short, fat man was on the road in front of them, nodding and bowing as he sent someone to the car. One of his hands was blocking the car door, and he looked so flattering. Poplar Fruit planned to take a detour as he did not want to meet him again. However, Lin Tianxi had just finished sending off his leader. When he turned around, his gaze fell on Poplar Fruit and Lu Yunran. Lin Tianxi's pupils shrank slightly. Poplar Fruit did not want to see him, but why would he want to see Poplar Fruit again? When they saw Poplar Fruit, their gazes collided. At this moment, they couldn't avoid it even if they wanted to. Lin Tianxi's heart was still burning with an evil fire, and the thought of competing once again surged into his mind. Lin Tianxi rolled his eyes and put on a smiling face to greet him. He said, "Oh, isn't this Poplar Fruit? The two of you are leaving? Why don't you play a little longer?" Poplar Fruit said to him indifferently, "It's getting late. It'll take a few more hours to get back to my hometown. There's no need." A smile appeared in Lin Tianxi's eyes as he pretended to be concerned and said, "Is that so? The station is quite far from here, and there are so many people here, so it's not easy to find a taxi. How about I arrange a car to take you to the station?" Poplar Fruit's facial muscles twitched. He looked at Lin Tianxi as if he was looking at a joke. However, Lin Tianxi didn't notice it at all. He thought that Poplar Fruit was too embarrassed to speak. He continued to nag, "It's so inconvenient to take the bus. Don't you think so? It's so inconvenient to not have a car these days." As he spoke, Lin Tianxi deliberately lifted the hem of his suit, revealing his big belly and the car key with 4 rings buckled at the waist of his trousers. A proud expression appeared on Lin Tianxi's face. The sense of superiority brought by the Audi made him feel a little smug. This time, Poplar Fruit stopped Zheng Yujie, who was about to flip out. Inside, Poplar Fruit had been modest because he didn't want to ruin the wedding atmosphere for Lu Yunran's sake. Now that they were out, there weren't any acquaintances around. Poplar Fruit wouldn't spoil him and let him humiliate him. Poplar Fruit smiled and took out his car key. He shook it and pressed the unlock button. The Land Rover parked in front of the hotel's entrance beeped twice, and its head-sized headlights flashed. Under Lin Tianxi's stunned gaze, Poplar Fruit smiled faintly and said, "Mr. Lin, there's no need for that. I have a car." After that, Poplar Fruit walked back to his Land Rover with Zheng Yujie without looking back. Just as he brushed past Lin Tianxi, Poplar Fruit said softly, "Mr. Lin, let me give you a piece of advice. Don't pretend to be cool, or you'll be struck by lightning." Lin Tianxi stared blankly as Poplar Fruit and Zheng Yujie got into the Land Rover. Amid the roar of the engine, the Land Rover slowly drove away. Lin Tianxi felt his face burning, as if he had been slapped. There was no need to elaborate on such a clown. The camera returned to Poplar Fruit. After driving for a while, Zheng Yujie suddenly burst into laughter. She turned to look at Poplar Fruit and smiled. "I thought you would continue to tolerate him." "Humph." Poplar Fruit snorted proudly and said, "I tolerate him because of Xiao Ran. Lu Yunran. I've been unhappy with him for a long time." "You're protecting your ex-girlfriend like this?" Zheng Yujie emphasized the word ex-girlfriend and asked, "Don't tell me you're still in love with her? Why don't you take her back?" Zheng Yujie's words were filled with jealousy, which was not like her. Poplar Fruit looked at Zheng Yujie through the rearview mirror and shook his head. He smiled and said, "It's not that I'm still in love with her. I broke up with her in the past. It's impossible for us to get back together now, and it's impossible for us to do so in the future." Zheng Yujie blinked and continued to listen to Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit explained, "She longed for her own love and marriage, but I had Kiki. I couldn't give her what she wanted, so we broke up. This is what I owe her. I can't give it to her, but I can't destroy what she wants." Poplar Fruit smiled faintly. "Just tolerate Lin Tianxi. Just treat it as if you met a weirdo on the road. It'll be over after a while. Why do you have to do something that will make both of you unhappy? I don't think the person she chose is good." Zheng Yujie curled her lips and said, "She must have been blind to find such a weirdo." Section Chief, haha. If I were to become an official, I would at least be a deputy division chief. Okay, let's not talk about him. Just thinking about him makes me annoyed. He's as long-winded as Tang Sanzang. Poplar Fruit laughed. Zheng Yujie obediently shut her mouth. She turned her body and looked at Poplar Fruit's handsome side profile. Her eyes were a little blurred. What good man. Suddenly, Zheng Yujia's eyes flashed with a hint of strangeness. She smiled charmingly and asked, "By the way, what does my mouth taste?" Poplar Fruit's face turned red. His muscles tightened, and his neck was so stiff that he didn't dare to turn his head. He sneaked a peek at the rearview mirror and glanced at Zheng Yujia. Zheng Yujia keenly noticed Poplar Fruit's gaze. She deliberately stuck out her pink tongue and licked her red lips. She seductively glanced at Poplar Fruit and sweetly asked, "Do you want to do it again?" Poplar Fruit's hand trembled, and the front of the car shook violently. He almost drove the car into a ditch. Fortunately, he grabbed the steering wheel in time. Otherwise, 3 lives would have been lost. She really was a seductress that wouldn't give up until she was dead. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 326. When they got home, Poplar Fruit and Zheng Yujia started to pack their luggage to return to Guangzhou. After all, they had stayed in their hometown for a week. If it wasn't for the wedding, Poplar Fruit would have gone back a long time ago. It was rare for Zheng Yujia to come over. Poplar Fruit planned to bring her to other scenic spots in Guangdong province on the way back. He had promised her that when he was in America. However, this plan was disrupted by a phone call. The phone call came from when they were chatting in the room at night. Zheng Yujia went out to answer the call and came back with a frown. "What's wrong?" Poplar Fruit asked. "I have to go home," Zheng Yujia said apologetically to Poplar Fruit. "Did something happen?" Poplar Fruit asked curiously. "Is it urgent?" Zheng Yujia shook her head and said softly, "It's nothing. My mom just called me and told me to go home." Zheng Yujia didn't want to tell Poplar Fruit the reason. The Li family came knocking. Li Zichao, that bastard. Since the scheme didn't work, he went straight to the Zheng family with his mother. Of course, they were here to denounce him. When they questioned Li Zichao about his engagement with Zheng Yujia, they also threw out a few photos of Zheng Yujia and Poplar Fruit, as well as photos of Poplar Fruit and other girls. This time, Grandpa Zheng was furious. He flew into a rage and ordered Zheng Yujia's mother to call Zheng Yujia back. As Grandpa Zheng got older, he started to care about his reputation and his family's reputation. Zheng Yujia's action could be said to have crossed 3 of the old man's bottom lines. The first was the issue of credibility. Zheng Yujia didn't even say anything and unilaterally broke the engagement with the Li family. Where was Grandpa Zheng's face? If word got out, wouldn't people say that Grandpa Zheng went back on his word? All the big and small families in Beijing would probably stab him in the back. The second was the issue of family benefits. As the eldest daughter of the Zheng family, Zheng Yujia should shoulder a part of the responsibility. How could she just find a random man and throw the family benefits aside? Grandpa Zheng had already planned Zheng Timing's marriage before he came of age, not to mention Zheng Yujia. The third was the problem with the man Zheng Yujia found. Of all the people she could have found, she just had to find a man with no money and no family background. Moreover, this man didn't look like a good person. Not only did he have affairs everywhere, he even had a child. Grandpa Zheng wasn't the only one who felt ashamed. Zheng Yujia's mother also felt that her daughter had gone too far, being scolded by the younger generation of the Li family, referring to Li Zichao's mother. Old Master Zheng was so angry that he almost had a heart attack. In any case, he was so angry that he was about to die. After being scolded by her mother, Zheng Yujia didn't want to tell Poplar Fruit. She decided to go back and take responsibility for this matter herself. "You're leaving now?" Poplar Fruit looked out of the window in surprise. It was already pitch black. How could she leave in the middle of the night? This was a rural area, not a big city like Yangcheng. Zheng Yujia shook her head and said, "I'm leaving tomorrow. Send me to the airport in the city. I'll take a flight back to Beijing from there." Zheng Yujia borrowed Poplar Fruit's computer to book a plane ticket. Of course, there were flights to Beijing in the city. Zheng Yujia flew there directly when she came over. The next day, Poplar Fruit and Zheng Yujia set off very early to send her to the airport in the city. Poplar Fruit could tell from Zheng Yujia's silence that Zheng Yujia was in big trouble this time. In fact, Poplar Fruit could vaguely guess the truth of the matter. It was just that he didn't know how to help. After all, this was Zheng Yujia's family matter. As an outsider, he couldn't interfere. In the end, it was time to say goodbye. Yangwa carried her daughter and helped Zheng Yujie carry her small suitcase to the departure lounge. Not long after, they heard the announcement of the check-in. "I'm going back." Zheng Yujie took her small suitcase. She was used to the tenderness in her firm eyes. She suppressed the trembling in her heart and pretended to be free and easy. This time, when she went back, she would face a trial that she had thought about but didn't expect to appear so early. This time, Zheng Yujie knew that she couldn't escape the storm in her family. She could only fight with indomitable will. This time, Zheng Yujie was really unsure. She couldn't predict the future and didn't dare to assert her ending. She also didn't know if she would see Poplar Fruit again in the future, because she knew that her grandfather was a stubborn person to the bone. Even if she fought with all her might, he might not necessarily take pity on her. If they used Poplar Fruit to threaten her, she really didn't know what choice she would make. Last night, Zheng Yujie woke up in the middle of the night because she dreamed of the blue sky and the ruthless land that was rapidly approaching. She didn't know. She really didn't know. Zheng Yujie hid the fear and uneasiness in her heart very deeply. She didn't show it on the way. However, in her reluctant glance, Poplar Fruit still saw a hint of something, the determination that accidentally leaked out. Poplar Fruit felt the pain in his heart. He took a deep breath, walked forward, and used his empty right hand to hold Zheng Yujie's shoulder as she turned around to leave. He said sincerely, "Wait a minute. Yujie, listen to me. No matter what happens, don't be impulsive. If you need me, just tell me." Poplar Fruit's words almost made Zheng Yujie cry. She turned her back to Poplar Fruit and took a deep breath to hold back the tears that were about to roll out. Turning around, Zheng Yujie already had a bright smile on her face. She tiptoed and patted Poplar Fruit's shoulder, pretending to be relaxed. She smiled and said, "Little Fruit, I haven't failed to the point where I need you to fight. It's not a big deal. What are you worried about?" She patted her bulging chest and said heroically, "In this world, there's nothing that can stump me. Just watch. Watch how I defeat these rascals." By the way, Zheng Yujie winked at Poplar Fruit and said, "You've already given me your translation. It seems that this time, when I go back, I'll win 2 rounds in a row." After that, Zheng Yujie turned around and walked to the ticket counter with her head held high. There was no farewell hug, nor was there any nonsense farewell kiss. She left so confidently and without any worries. Poplar Fruit stood in the same place and stared blankly at Zheng Yujie's figure disappearing behind the boarding gate. After a long time, Poplar Fruit shook his head gently and walked out with his daughter in his arms. The Land Rover sped along the flat and wide airport highway. Poplar Fruit heard a roar coming from above his head. He looked out of the window and saw a large plane whistling through the air, flying to the distant north. "Come on, you can do it, Yujie." Chapter 327. After returning to Yangcheng, Poplar Fruit received a call from He Wenjue before he even had the time to clean up. He Wenjue's deep and steady voice came through the phone. "Poplar Fruit, I'm back. What happened on your side?" He Wenjue's voice had a kind of magical power. Listening to it, you would feel that he was a solid shield that wouldn't bat an eyelid in the face of a landslide. No matter how big the problem was, he wouldn't panic. This was what Poplar Fruit lacked. Perhaps this was also related to his social experience. After all, he was still too young and didn't have much experience. Even though he had abilities that most people couldn't compare to, when he encountered problems or setbacks, he would first panic before he forced himself to calm down and think of a solution. A true powerhouse, when encountering a problem, would bravely face it head-on. Poplar Fruit was still a long way from being an expert. "Big brother, the matter has been settled," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "I heard from your sister-in-law that you're in big trouble this time. How did you settle it?" He Wenjue wasn't happy, but worried instead. He asked in a deep voice, "Where are you now? I want to meet you." When Poplar Fruit heard this, he understood that He Wenjue thought that he had forgotten his words and used force to solve the problem. He hurriedly explained, "Big brother, listen to me. It's like this." Poplar Fruit didn't hide anything and told He Wenjue the whole story. "Huh." After Hiwenjua heard this, he was silent for a long time before he suddenly laughed out loud. Not bad, not bad. Big brother, what do you mean? Poplar Fruit was confused by Hiwenjua's laughter. Hiwenjua laughed. I knew it. You're talented and outstanding. You're a dragon among men. You won't be as ordinary as you were in the past. Well, I told your sister-in-law. She said that Poplar Fruit was a person who focused on learning and wasn't as complicated as you thought. See, I was right. You're gold. Wherever you go, you'll shine and blind the titanium dog eyes of others. Hiwenjua's words made Poplar Fruit not know whether to laugh or cry. However, he wasn't done yet. Very good, very good. To be able to make the princess of a big family fall in love with you and make other families jealous, Poplar Fruit, you're amazing. Big brother supports you. Courageously chase after the one from the Zheng family. Huh? Hiwenjua laughed boldly on the phone. Big brother, it's not what you think. Poplar Fruit didn't know whether to laugh or cry. There's nothing between me and you, Jia. We're friends. He enunciated the word friends very clearly. Then why do you still want to get involved? At this moment, Hiwenjua couldn't laugh anymore. He asked seriously, you have to know that if you didn't have the support of the Zheng family, even though the Li family has declined, dealing with an ordinary person like you with no background would be as easy as crushing an ant. I know, Poplar Fruit said in a low voice. In the past month, Poplar Fruit had felt the power of political power. But Yuji is my good friend. I can't watch her get pushed into the fire pit. Oh, this will be very troublesome for you. Hiwenjua pondered. Why don't you come to our army to avoid the limelight? Once you come in, you'll be a special organization. You'll only belong to the Supreme Military Commission. Even God can't do anything to you. Poplar Fruit shook his head and said, no need. I'll deal with whatever comes my way. I'm not afraid. To be honest, if it's one-on-one, I really want to punch that sissy. Let's see if he still dares to bully me. Suddenly, Poplar Fruit came to his senses. He frowned and asked, Big brother, that's not right. You have an ulterior motive. You're not trying to scare me and trick me into joining the army, are you? Hiwenjua wasn't ashamed that his little scheme was discovered. Instead, he laughed and said, you found out. Well, indeed, our army has been wanting to recruit you for a long time. Old Meng has been talking about you every day. He wants to practice with you again. Big brother Xiong and the others have been practicing their strength. They keep asking me when you're coming. They want to regain their face. What about Big brother Jingdong? Doesn't he want to practice shooting with me? Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. Him? He doesn't have the time to talk about you, Hiwenjua said with a smile. Recently, he's been eyeing a female soldier in the logistics department. He's been trying to please her. I'm serious. What's the point of studying in front of a computer every day? Why don't you come to our army? You can go abroad, often to do missions. A real man has to fight for his life on the battlefield. That way, you won't have lived in vain these few years. Hiwenjua advised earnestly. Big brother, forget it. Poplar Fruit said apologetically, my ambition doesn't lie here. I just want to live an ordinary life. I want to make achievements in my field that will attract the attention of the world. That's enough. You want to live an ordinary life. Hiwenjua shook his head and said with a smile, that's impossible. I just said that you're a piece of gold that will shine wherever you go. I wasn't trying to trick you. With your qualifications and ability, you'll definitely be a famous person in the future. Being ordinary is already a thing of the past for you. Let's not talk about this anymore. Who knows what will happen in the future? Poplar Fruit smiled and changed the topic. Oh yeah, Big brother, I still have to thank you. Hiwenjua was a little discouraged when he failed to kidnap Poplar Fruit. He laid on the big sofa and asked curiously, thank me for what? If you didn't teach me how to shoot last month, I would have died in the United States when I went abroad this time, Poplar Fruit said with emotion. Hiwenjua got up from the sofa and asked, what? What do you mean? When I was in the United States, Kiki and I met an assassin at a friend's house. Poplar Fruit casually told Hiwenjua about how he met the assassin and killed him with only one bullet, as if he was telling someone else's story. Of course, Poplar Fruit still hid some details appropriately. For example, he was able to see the assassin's movements at the bottom of the stairs by closing his eyes. These were all a little strange, so Poplar Fruit kept some of them to himself. One bullet. Hewenjua wasn't going to make a fuss about Poplar Fruit killing someone with a gun. Instead, he was surprised by Poplar Fruit's battle record. He patted his thigh and said, "It's still a headshot, right?" The last question was asked in a very confident tone. He didn't wait for Poplar Fruit to answer and said with emotion, "TSK, TSK, this psychological quality, this reaction on the battlefield, and this marksmanship. Poplar Fruit, it's a pity that you didn't come to our army." Okay, Poplar Fruit didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Big brother, don't keep thinking about dragging me to the army. I won't go anyway, but you can tell me a time, and I'll come over to be your training partner for free." Okay, it's a deal. It's a deal. Hewenjua didn't expect Poplar Fruit to follow him obediently. When he heard Poplar Fruit say that, he laughed out loud. "Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to..." Chapter 328. After getting off the plane, Zhang Yujia did not dare to go home directly. Instead, she ran to her house and called Zheng Taiming over. At this time, Zhang Yujia's mother, Deng Baoyan, could be said to be filled with dark clouds. Zheng Taiming did not dare to touch the minefield and stayed at home safely. But his sister called for him, so Zheng Taiming had to sneak out of the house. He wore a hat and sneaked out like a spy. "Come in." Seeing Zheng Taiming, Zhang Yujia was not in a good mood. She twisted Zheng Taiming's ear and dragged him into the house. "Ouch, ouch, sister. My ear's going to break," Zheng Taiming said with a long face. Zhang Yujia threw Zheng Taiming on the sofa, then domineeringly raised her leg and stepped on the sofa's armrest. Leaning down, she pointed her left index finger at Zheng Taiming's nose and angrily roared, "Speak." Zheng Taiming raised his hands and asked with a bitter face, "Speak. Speak what?" His voice was trembling because of Zhang Yujia. "I'm your sister." Zhang Yujia sharply stared at Zheng Taiming and asked, "Why did you cheat me?" "I didn't cheat you." Zheng Taiming was about to cry. "Really, after the last time at the airport, I didn't contact Li Zichao. I listened to you. This time, I didn't know that he came." Zheng Taiming quickly said, "I'm not talking about this." Zhang Yujia pushed Zheng Taiming's head and angrily said, "Last year, I asked you to send something to Poplar Fruit. What did you say?" "No, nothing." Zheng Taiming squirmed his mouth and said, "You're still being stubborn?" Zhang Yujia's eyes widened and said, "Tell me, when did I get engaged? When did I have a childhood sweetheart husband?" Zheng Taiming understood that his sister knew everything. He did not dare to continue being stubborn and said with a long face, "I was doing it for your own good. Moreover, you also have an engagement." "Marriage my ass," Zhang Yujia cursed and said, "When I was about to get engaged 2 years ago, I made it clear that this engagement is not valid. But you can't look for that Poplar Fruit." At this time, Zheng Taiming said earnestly, "You know what kind of family we are? Not only did you find an ordinary person, but you also found a man with a child. Didn't I want him to back off?" "What do you know?" Zhang Yujia pushed Zheng Taiming's head and said, "Poplar Fruit is not ordinary except for his family background. Tell me, among all the men you know, have you ever seen anyone at Poplar Fruit's age who could achieve such results without relying on anyone else? There are still plenty of them, men in their 20s who have earned hundreds of millions of yuan." Zheng Taiming said, unconvinced, "Can you not mention that stupid money to me?" Zhang Yujia said speechlessly, "In terms of moral character, how is Poplar Fruit worse than those playboys?" "Hey, sister, you can't justify this, can you?" Zheng Taiming said with a smile, "I think Poplar Fruit and Li Zichao are not good people. He has several women, and you still say that he is good?" Zhang Yujia was going crazy. She scolded, "Why do you believe Li Zichao's nonsense? I tell you, those photos are all lies. Poplar Fruit and those women are all friends. Have you seen him being intimate with any of them?" "No," Zheng Taiming muttered. His reason was not valid, and his voice was much lower. "If he is the same type of person as Li Zichao, why is he indifferent when I've already thrown myself into his arms?" Zhang Yujia said, "I often stay in the same room with him, and he has never touched me." "Wait, throw yourself into his arms?" Zheng Taiming looked at his sister, stunned, and asked in surprise, "Sister, when did you become so unreserved? This is not your style." Yes, a great beauty like Zheng Yujie with a queen-like personality has always been at the feet of men begging to kneel and lick. Using the word, throw yourself into his arms, on Zheng Yujie, Zheng Taiming was really surprised. Zheng Yujie blushed and said with a stiff neck, "Yes, don't I have the right to pursue the person I like?" "Impossible." Zheng Taiming shook his head and said. Although Zheng Yujie's temper was a bit bad, he knew his sister's charm. How can he not have any thoughts? He has, but he can restrain himself. Zheng Yujie thought of Poplar Fruit's hurried release when they kissed, and her heart felt a little sweet. That can only be said to be loosening the reins, only to grasp them better. He wants you, and more. Zheng Taiming shook his head and said, "Men are all like this. You are all like this, but Poplar Fruit is not." Zheng Yujie said firmly, "Anyway, I am dead set on following him, but he still won't accept me. It's all because of you." Zheng Yujie once again pointed the spearhead at Zheng Taiming and said, "If it weren't for your nonsense, he wouldn't have thought that I have a fiancé. Now, I am chasing him, but it's me who is flirting with him. How can he think like that?" Zheng Taiming jumped up as if his tail was stepped on. "It's me who thinks like that." Zheng Yujie pushed Zheng Taiming back, and she angrily said, "Don't change the subject. It's all your fault. No matter if I'm wrong or not. You can't be together with that Poplar Fruit. He also has a daughter." Zheng Taiming earnestly advised. "I don't care." Zheng Yujie raised her head and resolutely said, "Our family cares." Zheng Taiming sighed and said, "Do you remember what you told me? You said that since we were born into this big family, we shouldn't think about love. We have to follow the path that Father has drawn for us and walk forward step by step. The rise and fall of the family is closely related to each and every one of us." Zheng Yujie was silent. "Do you think our family will let you and that Poplar Fruit continue to develop?" Zheng Taiming said, "You've grown up." Withdrawing her foot, Zheng Yujie looked at Zheng Taiming with a complicated expression and said, "You've begun to understand how to think about problems. This sister is very pleased." Zheng Yujie sat beside Zheng Taiming, her left arm resting on Zheng Taiming's shoulder, and gently said, "Although I understand that this is almost impossible, I will still fight. You may not understand, but this time, I, your sister, have really met my Mr. Right. I don't care if he accepts me or not, or if my family agrees or not. I will only marry him." At this time, Zheng Taiming's mood was somewhat complicated. On one hand, he was thinking about the pressure and obstacles that his sister would face in the future. On the other hand, he was also thinking about Poplar Fruit, a man who actually gave him a good impression. Zheng Taiming let out a long sigh. He hugged his sister, patted her, and said, "Sister, don't worry. No matter what decision you make, I will support you." Chapter 329. Infinity and Taiji. Taiji's movement gives birth to yang. Extreme movement gives birth to stillness. Stillness gives birth to yin. Extreme stillness gives birth to movement. One movement and one stillness. They're each other's roots, dividing yin and yang. Two polarities exist. This was how Zhou Dunyi explained Taiji. And Poplar Fruit, after practicing Taiji's inner strength, had a deeper understanding of it. When he circulated his cultivation technique at night, Poplar Fruit would feel that his body would produce a surge of yuan qi out of thin air, channeling into the yuan qi stream in his meridians. This kind of yuan qi seemed to originate from the void, but also seemed to be a part of his body. It looked very ordinary, but it was ever-changing according to his thoughts. When he meditated, it would transform into yuan qi that emitted the aura of life, nourishing his meridians and body. Even his tired spirit would gradually regain its radiance. Recently, Poplar Fruit had discovered that the yuan qi at this time could be used to treat injuries and illnesses. The injury on Kiki's face, Poplar Fruit used 2 days to heal it back to its original state. Afterwards, on the way back to Yangcheng, perhaps because of the long journey, Kiki caught a little cold, sneezing nonstop. Poplar Fruit only used his yuan qi to nurse Kiki back to health at night. When she woke up the next day, she had recovered her health. Of course, it wasn't just the yuan qi of life. When he was practicing his fist, if poplar fruit imagined an enemy, then the yuan qi would transform into a fierce yang qi and a soft yin qi. When it was fierce, it could destroy stone tablets, and when it was soft, the body was soft as if it had no bones, making it hard for others to grasp. As for whether he could fight or not, poplar fruit wasn't very concerned. Because when poplar fruit woke up early in the morning, he was shocked to find that the yuan qi that he had left behind when he was grooming his daughter's body last night had actually stayed. Not only that, it had also started to follow the path that he had groomed yesterday and slowly flowed through Kiki's meridians. It was as if it had become a part of Kiki's body. Poplar fruit was ecstatic. This was a good thing. Although it was said that good things should be kept a secret for poplar fruit, he didn't need to keep any secrets in front of Kiki. He had wanted to wait for Kiki to grow up before teaching her. Who would have thought that by chance, his yuan qi would be able to circulate within Kiki's body? Of course, this operating speed was too slow compared to the poplar fruit. However, since he was just starting out, poplar fruit didn't have high expectations. He didn't even go for his morning exercise. He carefully carried his daughter back to the big bed and then sat cross-legged beside her. Yesterday, when he was combing his daughter's body, he didn't circulate his vital energy completely. Because he was mainly focusing on Kiki's small cold, his vital energy was only flowing slowly around Kiki's heart and lungs. Poplar fruit sat cross-legged and closed his eyes. His hands moved in front of his body, and he drew out a strand of vital energy from his dantian and stuck it on his right index and middle finger. His right hand formed a sword finger and pointed towards the position where the vital energy was flowing. He frowned as he realized that his vital energy seemed to be a little different from Kiki's vital energy. He couldn't inject his vital energy into her body. Looks like his idea of using excessive force to help her grow was dashed. Kiki's vital energy had already merged with Kiki's mark. It no longer belonged to poplar fruit. However, the good news was that under the guidance of poplar fruit's vital energy, Kiki's weak vital energy was circulating at a slightly faster speed. At least, it wasn't slow to the point where it would drive poplar fruit crazy. Then poplar fruit guided this strand of vital energy to circulate on the correct path. It was still too slow. Poplar fruit's vital energy only needed about 5 minutes to circulate in his body. But Kiki's round took a total of 48 minutes for poplar fruit. One must know that Kiki's meridian system was much smaller than poplar fruit's. This caused poplar fruit to use up nearly half of his vital energy. Let's take a break. Poplar fruit wiped his sweat as he thought to himself. This job was indeed a little tiring. However, after he rested for more than 10 minutes, he was surprised to find that although Kiki's vital energy circulation speed had returned to its original state, its circulation path was exactly the same as what poplar fruit had previously guided. This made poplar fruit smack his lips. What kind of memory was this? She was able to memorize it after walking it once in an unconscious state. Moreover, poplar fruit found that Kiki was the same as him. Even if she wasn't seriously meditating, her vital energy could circulate on its own. He was really looking forward to how powerful Kiki's Tai Chi internal strength would be when she grew up. Poplar fruit smiled as he looked at Kiki, who was still sucking her pinky while sleeping. Poplar fruit himself was already very abnormal. He became a monk halfway through his cultivation, and in just over a year, he had already embarked on the path of pursuing the Grandmaster realm. Kiki was still so young. Her future achievements would definitely be greater than her father's. After Kiki woke up, poplar fruit found that his daughter's spirit was much better, especially those big watery eyes. They were like two exquisite and pure black gems, untainted by worldly aura. She was really cute. At noon, when poplar fruit was busy washing rice and cooking, Song Jiwen smelled the fragrance and came over. "Go away, don't bite my shoes." Song Jiwen squatted down and used his hands to push away Goldie, who was chasing after his slippers. Then, he casually sat down at the table and asked, What delicious food are you making today? Beer duck. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, I brought the duck from home yesterday. I knew there would be a feast. Song Ji-Wen chuckled. Call Shueching over too. Poplar Fruit thought for a moment and said, Hey, why aren't you calling? Song Ji-Wen always felt that Duan Shueching was cold and not easy to deal with. After hearing Poplar Fruit's order, she immediately resisted. You know, she's been ignoring me all this time. When she saw my phone, she would reject it, Poplar Fruit said in distress. It's been so long. I don't know if she's appeased or not. No, I'm asking you, what are you thinking? Song Ji-Wen rested his head on the back of the chair and asked curiously, Do you like Shueching or not? I like her, but that's a friend's like. Poplar Fruit replied without hesitation. What I mean is, if you don't want to be her boyfriend, then you should break it off as soon as possible. Don't make everyone uncomfortable, Song Ji-Wen said. If we can't be boyfriend and girlfriend, can't we be normal friends? Poplar Fruit asked. You don't like her? Can't you let her give up? Do you have to continue teasing her? Song Ji-Wen argued with Poplar Fruit. I can't be so heartless. Poplar Fruit shook his head and said, Don't talk nonsense. Hurry up and make the call. I also want to talk to her. Well, I don't care about you guys anymore. Just don't break up with each other and become enemies in the end. Song Ji-Wen shook his head, took out his phone from his trouser pocket, and went to the balcony to make a call. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 330. On the other hand, in Beijing, after a night of hesitation, Zheng Yujie still braced herself to go home. Zheng Yujie's home was in a place called Shishan Courtyard, one of the most mysterious places in Beijing, because the people who lived here were all famous figures in the political arena since the founding of China. Not to mention the need to check and register. Almost every corner was guarded and strictly monitored. It could be said that the security was so tight that not even a fly could fly in. Zheng Yujie's car was not blocked, but she did not dare to directly drive home. Instead, she parked in the public parking lot of Shishan Courtyard. After turning off the engine, Zheng Yujie sat in the driver's seat, her body slightly trembling. After a long time, she gritted her teeth, unbuckled her seat belt, and got out of the car. She thought to herself, horizontal is a knife, vertical is also a knife. I have to face it. Where are you going? Zheng Yujie tiptoed through the door and then wanted to sneak upstairs to her room. At this time, a voice that was not very loud but very clear sounded. Zheng Yujie, who was holding her shoes and bending over, suddenly froze. Zheng Yujie's expression stiffened as she turned around, squeezed out a smile, and said, Mom, in your eyes, do you still have a mother like me? Deng Baoyan put down the teacup, then gently placed her hands on her knees, looked at Zheng Yujie's side, and asked. Zheng Yujie quickly ran to Deng Baoyan's side and sat down. Holding her hand, she said fawningly, Mom, how can I not have you in my eyes? Then why did you lie to me? Why did you hide it from me? Deng Baoyan was unmoved as she patted the armrest of the sofa and asked with some pain in her heart, Tell me, who did you go to Guangdong province to find? A friend, Zheng Yujie said in a low voice. Over 60 years old, Deng Baoyan took out a photo, patted it, stared at her, and asked, This is your friend who is over 60 years old? Zheng Yujie didn't need to look to know the content of the photo. She muttered, I'm sorry, but he's really my friend from work. Is it really just work? Deng Baoyan said angrily. Then don't go to the publishing house. I'll give you another job. What kind of friends do you have? Why? Zheng Yujie said anxiously. It wasn't easy for me to make some achievements. Why do you have to say that you won't do it for me? Based on the fact that you and this Yanghua have an ambiguous relationship. Deng Baoyan slapped the table and said harshly, If I hadn't asked her Annie Peng, she would have kept it from me forever. Tell me, how long have you been with him? You even went to Yangcheng several times to look for him. Mom, what are you thinking about? Zheng Yujie held Deng Baoyan's hand and said coquettishly, I'm really not in a relationship with him. You don't have to act with me. Do you think that I don't understand you? If you're not in a relationship, then why would the Li family mobilize so many people to make things difficult for me and your grandfather? Deng Baoyan asked. If you're not in a relationship, then do you need to use our family's relationship to protect that brat? All right. Zhang Yu just shook off Deng Baoyan's hand and sat to the side as she muttered, I'll be honest with you. Your daughter has taken a liking to him, but he hasn't agreed to it yet. So from a technical point of view, our relationship isn't in a relationship. Zhang Yujie told Deng Baoyan this because she knew that in the entire family, her mother was the easiest to talk to. Although Deng Baoyan's words were sharp, her heart was the softest. Since young, Zhang Yujie and Deng Baoyan had the closest relationship. When the two of them went shopping, they would always hug each other's hands like they were best friends. This brat still wants to loosen the reins only to grasp them better. He's very resourceful. Deng Baoyan didn't buy it. She sneered and said, That's good. You can break off this ambiguous relationship with him and pretend that this never happened. No, Zhang Yujie cried out involuntarily. Do you still want to continue with a man who already has a child? Deng Baoyan stared and said, I'll put aside his family background and economic conditions. He's already married. How can you be so stupid? Mom, it's not what you think. Poplar Fruit has never been married. Zhang Yujie took Deng Baoyan's hand and told her about Poplar Fruit's bizarre experience. So, don't look at him like other divorced men. Besides, what's wrong with having a child? Zhang Yujie said with dissatisfaction. If I have a child, I can't have one less. No matter how difficult it was, Poplar Fruit never left Kiki. This shows that he's a sentimental man and will definitely treat me well in the future. So what if I have a child? I can treat her as my own child. How can you say such silly things? Deng Baoyan said anxiously. Which woman doesn't want her own child? Would someone else's child be the same? Okay, I'm not talking about the child. Deng Baoyan waved her hand and said, I think you said that he's sentimental. He's already flirting everywhere. Can he still be considered sentimental? Those are his friends. Zhang Yujie said unhappily. Don't look at the photos that Li Zichao brought over. He found someone to take them. The angle is a problem. Even if you were to go shopping and meet an Annie, you could still have a romantic encounter. If it weren't for timing, we would have been together a long time ago. Zhang Yujie told Deng Baoyan about the misunderstanding, feeling wronged. However, she didn't tell her that the person that Poplar Fruit liked now was someone else and not her. Zhang Yujie knew that if she said that, it would be a dead end. I don't understand. Deng Baoyan shook her head and said, What's so good about him, except that he's good-looking? It has nothing to do with his appearance. Zhang Yujie hugged Deng Baoyan's waist and whispered to her about how she fell in love with Poplar Fruit. She even told her about how Poplar Fruit helped her wash her underwear in the hotel in Beijing last year. Anyway, I know that I won't meet a man who will take care of me so carefully in my life. I love him. In this life, I've decided on him. Zhang Yujie curled up in her mother's arms. Silly girl. Deng Baoyan reached out and combed Zhang Yujie's hair. She sighed and said, There are good men everywhere. Why did you fall in love with this one? You know that your father and grandfather will definitely not agree to it. Who hadn't been young? Deng Baoyan had also been in love when she was young. Her love had been vigorous, but she hadn't been firm. Later, she had been separated by her family and married Zhang Mingsheng. Just like that, she had lived a peaceful life for decades. Occasionally, when she thought about the memories of her youth, the faint regret couldn't be anesthetized by alcohol. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.